Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1158 of the War News Stream. And today we've had big news from every part of the world, incredibly big news, actually. We've heard that an Iranian port has exploded due to Chinese rocket fuel, of all things. Also, Pakistan and India are launching major attacks on one another at their borders, and China has seized a Vietnamese island today in the South China Sea, which has not been reported on very widely, but that's a huge story right there, and it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as major developments have been coming from every single direction today in every single major conflict or developing conflict that we have been able to hear of so far. As we have been able to hear that inside of the area of Bandar Abbas in the southern area of the Islamic Republic of Iran, a significant explosion today actually destroyed the majority of the port of Bandar Abbas and is continuing to burn at this moment right now. It has been suggested that there may have been underground nuclear facilities at the port that now may possibly be on fire, as underground heat sources have been detected in 3 different areas throughout the city. We have also been able to hear some significant news outside of the significant port explosion at Bandar Abbas that U.S. forces are continuing their bombardment of the Yemeni Houthis inside of western Yemen, and at the exact same time, inside of India and Pakistan, major firefights are now breaking out along the entirety of the border as Pakistani forces are racing to the area, as Indian forces appear to have already opened up some limited attacks along the border's front, and the Pakistani government has now stated that either water or blood can flow, and the choice is up to India. India has also stated that they are going to be vowing armed retaliation against the Pakistanis for the actions at the Pahalgam massacre, and we've also been able to hear of further information and news concerning the Indian-Pakistan war, which appears to be well underway at this point. Meanwhile, the People's Republic of China has seized an island from the Republic of Vietnam today, the People's Republic of Vietnam, in an armed invasion of the island. We have actually been able to see that while there were no Vietnamese forces on the island, armed Chinese forces of the People's Liberation Army, Navy, Marine Corps were landed on the island today and actually did end up seizing it, raising the flag of the People's Republic of China over the face of the island and claiming it for the Chinese state. We have also been able to hear even further significant developments inside of Eastern Europe, as we were able to hear today that at the funeral for the prior Pope, Pope Francis, that the President of the United States and the President of Ukraine sat down and had a one-on-one meeting inside of St. Paul's Basilica in the Vatican. After the meeting was concluded, the President of the United States put out a scathing statement publicly posted, I believe, on Truth Social against the Russian Federation, claiming that they were continuously attacking civilians in an attempt to play the President of the United States and the United States of America as a fool. Now the President of the United States is suggesting that they move towards sanctioning the Russian Federation and continuing their support for Ukraine indefinitely into the future until the conflict can truly be resolved and the Russians will be brought back to the negotiating table by being brought to their knees. We have also been able to hear in other terms in the actual war in Ukraine that the Russian Federation has also been up to its own little sneaky business today. We were able to hear that the Russian Federation has now claimed complete control of Kursk, although there are still Ukrainian forces inside of the Kursk region at this moment, and we also were able to hear an official direct statement by the Russians today through Sergei Shoigu. Oh, actually, sorry, it was not Sergei Shoigu, it was Gerasimov, sorry, correction there, that the North Koreans actually were involved as an expeditionary force in the Battle of Kursk, and still are involved to some capacity even at this point right now. This is coming as the Russian Federation is continuing their offensives inside of the Sumy direction, and against the Ukrainian defensive forces in Kursk, and we were able to see that the attacks were largely getting stopped today throughout all of the region. We have also been able to hear throughout the rest of the front lines that the Ukrainian armed forces have continued to hold back the Russian Federation's armed forces and have continued to inflict pretty sizable losses on the majority of the attacks that were conducted by the Russian armed forces today. The Russian Federation also violated Polish airspace today with an Mi-17 helicopter, which quickly diverted out of Polish airspace, but it did cause a momentary state of high alert for Polish armed forces, as it was unknown what the intentions of the helicopter were. Nevertheless, we have a major amount of news today to cover from every single corner of the world. It has been an absolutely crazy day. And I also want to point out, because I've actually seen about 2 or 3 people pointing this out, this is something we noticed last night a little bit and something we're noticing again tonight. YouTube is having a little bit of a problem with super chats. If you were having an issue with throwing in a super chat tonight, we're terribly sorry about that. Unfortunately, that's largely out of our control, because that's usually controlled on YouTube's end, because this is their platform. They're the ones who manage the actual money transfer system with the super chats. But do not fret. We do thank everyone so much for wanting to support the channel, but if for some reason it is impossible to actually super chat the channel tonight, do not worry. We still will be running our stream as usual. We will just be having a large amount of live chats to answer in the question segments instead of super chats. But we do thank everyone for their concern and wanting to support the channel. But once again, we will be running this channel hell or high water, and we also thank everyone for still attempting to super chat, although apparently YouTube's having a major issue with most people being able to actually super chat, at least to this point. But moving on from that and into the major breaking news that we've been able to hear tonight, there has been some incredibly significant news that has come out from the Islamic Republic of Iran today, and out of really the only major port in the entirety of Iran, which is Bandar Abbas. Bandar Abbas is a fairly significant city, and port city at that, that is along the area of the Iranian southern coastline, also known as the Persian Gulf, or the Persian Gulf coastline for the large part. At this point, the Iranians really only have this one major port to count on, and there is a minor port that can be counted on at Bushehr, although this one is far smaller in its abilities and competency. Nevertheless, Bandar Abbas serves as a major mooring point for the larger vessels of the Islamic Republic of Iran's Navy, which is housed right here within this harbor. And we've also seen that there's a decent amount of a civilian mooring as well, which we can see through here. And we can also see a larger area of the commercial or fishing port down here as well, further on down the coastline inside the city of Bandar Abbas. Nevertheless, this port is wildly significant, not only for the civil aspect of maintaining the Islamic Republic of Iran's economic abilities, but it also is wildly important for the Islamic Republic of Iran's Navy and armed forces to be able to have an actual base that they can operate out of, and also be able to maintain and upkeep their vessels and keep them at a combat readiness to where they could go out into the Persian Gulf if they needed to, and then get swatted around by literally anyone, because their Navy is still incredibly far behind the times. Nevertheless, Nevertheless, something a little bit more important happened today, at least something that didn't really have to do directly with the Navy, and I tried to lay it out in the best sequence I could at this point right here, and so we're going to start us out with something nice and fun. A fire broke out today in the port of Bandar Abbas, which we can once again see right here, and from what we're largely understanding, the fire broke out somewhere on the eastern side of the port, so this is somewhere a little bit closer, as a matter of fact, to the area of the military harbor, which is seen here in the southeastern section of the port itself. It appears that a fire broke out in a small form. There's been a lot of rumors as to how it happened. Some people tried to suggest earlier today that it was some sort of a gas leak that created some sort of a fire, and then the fire spread. But there was a little interesting thing that happened. The fire spread, picked up, and then out of the blue, it violently exploded. And we actually got the closest video I've ever seen of the explosion right here to start this all off for all of y'all. So we can see right here that there's some sort of a bright orange smoke that is coming out of the fire. We see it picking up a little bit. And this guy seems to be going, "What in blazes?" We see this guy running. He might be a little smart, Matthew, because that looks like it's starting to pick up and get out of control a little bit.
Oh dear. This is getting very ugly.
Whoa. Whoa! I don't know what
Honestly,
happened.
I think those guys were way too damn close right there. Like, even the guys that took off running, that was a powerful explosion. I'm not sure if those guys would have made it.
I'm not gonna lie, Matthew. I think they might have been charbroiled a little bit, considering how close they were to this. But we also were able to see the size of the explosion in another angle, which was a little bit farther off from the actual port. It's about a mile away or so, maybe 2 miles away. But it's in some sort of a truck loading area near to the port. So really quickly, we might actually be able to geolocate this area. And it appears that it might be somewhere around here. So relative to the port facility that we're looking at, this isn't too far away. Like, let's take a little bit of a rough measurement here. This is about, let's see here, about 3/4 of a mile away, not that far. But this was a view of that parking lot in the middle of the explosion. So let's take a look at this right here. We can see all the trucks driving around. At any second, the explosion is going to go off in the distance. And you'll see the shockwave rip across this parking lot, which you can see right here. And that seems to be a pretty strong shockwave. Suffice it to say that this was a... Oh, look, there was a piece of debris that actually bounced off the road down here. Look at this, Matthew. Right where my mouse cursor is. Bling!
Oh, wow. A little piece of something right there on the side. Honestly, like, you know, you mentioned a moment ago, people were saying that was a gas leak that caused this. The only problem with that theory is gas doesn't cause fires. That is a explosive, or it has the ability to create an explosion, but you have to have a spark or fire or flame or something like that to actually kick it off. And so far, I've not heard any good explanation as to what actually kicked this fire off. And once again, the sodium perchlorate that was in this area, or the gas, whichever one it was, it requires something to set it off. So I don't even know really what caused it at this point.
I would have to say that I don't really know what caused it either, because like Matthew's saying, a lot of people have been saying that it was a gas pipeline that broke that started the fire. But the thing is that gas is a volatile substance, yes, but it also isn't going to just spontaneously combust like a wet bale of hay that you throw inside of a barn. Those actually will spontaneously combust. But there has to be some sort of a ignition source to actually create a fire, even still. But nevertheless, moving on from that, we were able to see a huge mushroom cloud right after the explosion, which we can see right here. Ooh, wee! That looks like a pretty big one right there.
Dude, this guy sounds like he could be the hot dog man, like the Iranian version, the way he's talking.
Dude, this guy went, oh, man, Yuri. Oh, like, did you hear him say that? He said Yuri at the end. Listen to this real quick.
He sounds a little sus, a little bit.
Oh, man. Like, there went my investment in chlorine perchlorate. Oh, man. But moving on from that, and on from that little clip right there, we also were able to see the fires that resulted from the explosions burning across the whole facility. We're going to be muting this specific clip because it's just loudness for no reason. But we can see that the Iranians had already brought in Mi-17s to try and control some of the blazes. And as some people would say, what the blazes? And I'd agree with that right here, folks. What the blazes is going on down here? There are multiple independent fires that have broken out this facility, and from what we can tell, once again, these fires actually broke out somewhere within the truck area right up here. We don't know exactly where it is yet. The geolocation is a little bit tough because the whole area is covered in sand, and landmarks are a little bit hard to find in most of Iran. But it does appear that these fires broke out within the northern area. And we see the helicopter just flying over and getting a good little gander at the whole thing. Or as the former CEO of Chipotle, now Starbucks, said, they're giving it a look, giving it a nod.
Honestly, the look they're giving me right now sort of tells me that this is going to get a lot worse because this is spreading quite rapidly. And if you think the Russians are bad at putting out fires, the Iranians are even worse. They have a worse ability than the Russians to keep blazes going. So I think it's going to get bad.
Man, I think in the end, man, the Iranians are going to be looking at this fire and they're going to give it a little look and a little nod. Maybe write something on the cup, like a smiley face or something. But we also got to see the huge explosion from a more distant angle than the first one. This one lets us really see the actual plume of the explosion when it starts. Oh! Oh my god, dude, that actually was violent. Look at this. Oh!
Honestly, it reminds me of the Beirut explosion to a small degree. Like, I think the Beirut explosion was actually larger than this one just by sort of eyeballing it. I'm not really sure what the actual metric was on it, but this one was pretty large.
This one was large. And my boy went flying. Oh! And we see another angle of it here, and holy smokes, folks. Look at that. It actually blew the camera right off the front windshield. Man, this guy survived a Call of Duty tactical nuke.
Honestly, it's crazy to see these people that are this close to the explosion, sort of like getting the shockwave initial hit. Some of these people, like the guy you just saw, will survive it, and it's hard to believe that they're this close and actually just walk away from it. I'm sure they have some injury, but they're not dead. So I mean, that's kind of surprising in itself.
Yeah, it really is actually incredibly surprising. And we also once again got to see the major fires that are still burning right now inside of Bandar Abbas, right here.
Uh-oh, a psycho in the crowd.
Dude, someone's getting a kick out of this, man. He said, oh my god, that's my whole life savings over there on my job. It's like, bro, it's like, calm down a little bit, man. It's like, it's not really a laughing matter. Bro, and this guy's trying to turn into a ghost, bro. He's like, yo, it's on fire. Ooh.
And they got freaking, what is this, like, Tweedledee and Tweedledum over here, like, filming it.
Dude, you got one guy who's a little bit too happy. You got one guy who's getting spooked just by looking at a fire, man. He's going, ooh, ooh. It's like, bro, it's like, calm down, dude. It's not anything that crazy. But we of course got to see the fires were still raging uncontrollably. We were able to hear that a large fire sparked by a deadly explosion at Iran's port of Shahid Rajeh has intensified and could spread to other areas and containers, according to the state media inside of Iran. And we also were able to hear of a brand new explosion, a secondary explosion that happened just 2 hours ago. Take a look at this. That's a little bright. And the fire, it burns white.
They really have a good peanut gallery here, with the people commenting on it.
Dude, honestly, man, I feel like the firefighters are doing less firefighting and they're doing more like fire talking. They're like, "Wow, look at it! It's like white and it's burning really bright. Wow, look, it's popping." You know, it's like, dude, fight it. Like, you know, stop standing around and go fight the fire. You see, we continue to try and fight the blaze. And
You know, the really bad part about this is obviously for the Iranians, their port has exploded and they've lost all of that very valuable Chinese Bing Shilling sodium perchlorate, which they use to develop ballistic missiles. But also, that stuff, when it burns, sodium perchlorate, which is like a precursor to the actual solid rocket fuel they use for those missiles, is extremely toxic. Like if you burn that or breathe that in, it is almost deadly, actually. In fact, it is deadly in most cases. So now that is filling the skies of Iran with that deadly substance, and people are being told to go inside now. So I'm not sure if going inside is going to help them, because I don't think their houses are airtight, but that's certainly a bad side effect.
hey, why is the air getting really spicy in the house? It's like, well, it's probably because you have the windows open. But moving on from that, we were able to hear that apparently it was a little rocket fire. A little rocket fire, folks, to happen. It was sodium perchlorate, from what we're hearing. And it's the ingredient used in solid fuel for rocket missiles. Wow. What do you know? Sounds like the Iranians were trying to make a weapon of destruction, and it ended up destroying them. A little bit ironic with that, isn't it, folks? Isn't it a little bit ironic? But we also were able to hear something a little bit mysterious. NASA updated the UN that it's detected on its radars 3 unusual heat spots observed in the Bandar Abbas area. Those aren't just a fire. There is concern that an underground nuclear facility in the area may have been damaged from the resulting explosion. So it's a possibility now that there's an underground fire going on from an underground nuclear facility somewhere in the area that's also adding on to the chaos that's already happening from the ongoing fire that's still ripping through the port of Bandar Abbas at this moment. So in general, this has ended up resulting in a significant amount of damage. It's really even hard for us to measure right now for the Islamic Republic of Iran from this significant port explosion that has occurred today. And I guess you could call it, folks, that the Iranians just rocketed on into failure. They always say don't rush to failure, and the Iranians said we didn't rush to failure, we rocketed right into it. And I'd have to say on that they kind of get a little bit of a bit of a pass, because it seems as though that's a little bit true. But beyond that, a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts and prayers for the Iranians, because a major Iranian port exploded due to Chinesium rocket fuel, causing massive destruction. And a lot of people have been talking about whether this was an attack or not, whether this was just a very amazing accident that happened, or whether this had any kind of deliberate act behind it, possibly by an external state actor, like the State of Israel, maybe. Maybe the Israelis are behind this. Maybe Netanyahu was down in that port himself and he said, I'm about to light this thing on fire. And then he just, started a massive fire in the port and the whole thing, exploded. Nobody really knows. Some people are really leaning towards it being an attack or sabotage. But there's also an equal amount of people almost who are saying that it was just a really bad accident. Nevertheless, Matthew, what are people thinking about this? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So it looks like 37% of the audience said yes, it was a likely an attack or sabotage on that facility which caused it to explode, while 35% said no, it was simply a bad accident, and 20% said we need more intel. And I would say at first glance, there is no real proof that it was indeed a sabotage or an attack. But at the same time, though, we don't have any information as to how this fire got started or what sparked it. All we're told is it could be a gas leak that started it, which thus ignited the sodium perchlorate, which was the Chinese rocket fuel sitting at this Iranian port. And that's what caused the explosion. But still, we do not know what sparked it. We don't know if it was maybe somebody smoking nearby or maybe it was somebody with a lighter. We don't really know. So that is the big missing link right now, which makes me a bit suspicious. And also, considering the fact that this was Chinese rocket fuel which exploded, which is used for Iran to develop ballistic missiles, which could be used by Iran to attack Israel, that makes me wonder if this was some sort of a covert operation to take out that rocket fuel so that Iran can't develop more ballistics. But right now, that's just speculation. So generally, I'm going to be with the 20% that said we need more intel, because without knowing that missing link of what sparked it, it's really hard to tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my personal opinion, I believe that it most likely was possibly an accident. Usually things like this can happen, and usually major explosions such as these usually are not sabotage. Historically, they've usually been due to some sort of an accident or incompetence. For example, the Beirut port explosion as well as the Halifax explosion were both some of the largest non-nuclear explosions that have occurred that did not have any direct sabotage involved, and was more so just due to some sort of a workplace accident or some form of incompetence. For the Lebanese, it's just raw incompetence. Like, there's just no way around that. That's the only way that anything goes wrong in Lebanon, is largely just through sheer incompetence. But with the Halifax explosion, it was kind of a bit of a It was kind of a bit of a misfortune and also incompetence in its own ways, but, largely more so a workplace accident, if any, if we could describe it that way. But beyond that, this could also just be a simple accident. Rocket fuels such as these, such as sodium prochlorate, are incredibly volatile and easy to set off. And for that reason, any kind of porous storage protocols and, say, an open flame anywhere near it could have easily started some sort of a chain reaction where it caught on fire, then the fire developed rapidly, and then it turned into a catastrophic explosion. It is decently possible, so I would have to say that I'm going to go with the more likely answer, out of statistically what the answer would be. I would say that it's most likely going to be some sort of an accident of a sort, but still caused major damage to the port facilities in Bandar Abbas, which once again are really their only major port in the entirety of the country. But
also another point as well that not many people have pointed out today is I think we've known for a while that China has been supplying Iran with this solid rocket fuel component, but it seems to be they've been supplying Iran with a ton of it, like a huge mass quantity of it. And with that exploding there today and causing that large of an explosion, that's a pretty interesting fact that China is indeed supplying that much, because once again, that is used to develop weapons to attack Israel and Western partners in the region. So to me, that's quite interesting. I'm not sure if that's been responded to by the West before, but it seems like something that might be worth looking further into.
I would agree. It's a really interesting situation that we're seeing here, and I really think that we're going to probably find a lot more out about it than we know right now. Once again, we don't really know a lot right now beyond the fact it was an explosion, and there's some sort of an underground heat source that's now being detected in the area by NASA, but beyond that, we really don't have an extremely high fidelity of details or information right now about what's going on here. Also, I have to give a big shout out to Hormuz Island. I guess that's where the Hormuz Food Company comes from, is Hormuz Island. And we can see that they have all kinds of nice names that are related to food, like Saffron Valley, which apparently flows with saffron. Look at that, Matthew. I mean, I think this is where the Hormuz Food Company is truly from at this point. But we'll never truly know. The actual origins of the Hormuz Food Company will always be a mystery, a great mystery to the world. Maybe that joke fell flat. But beyond that,
I didn't get it. It went over my head, I'm afraid.
let me wait a minute. Hang on. Oh no! It probably went over your head because I was mistaking Hormuz for Hormel. That's probably why it absolutely went over your head, because I was thinking.
Are you talking about McCormick, like the McCormick like spice company or something?
No, I was talking about Hormel right here, this brand.
That went way over my head, man. I'm afraid I don't know the food lore, I'm afraid.
Sadly, I got it wrong, too. I was thinking Hormel, and then I saw Hormuz, and then I just got it completely wrong. Anyways, moving on from that terrible joke, we're just going to completely forget I said that, but y'all will never forget that because it was that bad. We are going to be moving on out of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and moving on a little bit further on down into Western Yemen, and specifically into the capital of Yemeni Houthi-controlled territory right now, which is Sana'a. And we were able to see that the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy are continuing their bombardment of the city, which we can see in this clip right here.
Look, there's people running.
Yeah, there's people running.
They're just taking off.
Man, they flying.
And where was this again?
This was in the middle of Sana'a.
Oh, geez, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, actually pretty crazy. A U.S. airstrike apparently hit a facility dead center of Sana'a, but it appears that there was a decent chance of collateral that could have occurred around the area. We do not know of any casualties on the ground at this point. There may be some, because once again, it was in the middle of an urban populated area. We could clearly see that in the clip. But nevertheless, it is showing that the U.S. Armed Forces are continuing their aerial operations against the Yemeni Houthis inside of Western Yemen, including their largest city, which is under their control at this point, which is the city of Sana'a, which they've now changed the spelling of, because last week it was Sana'a as in S-A-N-A apostrophe A. Now it's just S-A-N-A-A. So they keep changing the way it's spelled, and that's getting really difficult to follow along with. But anyways, Moving on from Sana'a and the new way it's being spelled, we can see the United States Armed Forces are continuing their operations. We have seen that so far they've produced minimal results as the Yemeni Houthis have continued to lash out and fire at the Israelis and at the United States during the entirety of the attacks, but nevertheless, we are continuing on with the hopes that eventually with enough high explosives, they will eventually relent, which I'm thinking at this point may be a uncertainty or an unlikelihood for the large part. But moving on from that and out of Western Yemen, it is time for us to move on into the next big conflict that's going to be happening in the world, which is the one in between Pakistan and India, which it technically really has already begun. I mean, like we already covered that a couple of days ago with the border skirmishes that occurred in the Lipa Valley and all of the pretty much declaration of war actions that were being made by both sides. But today we got to see that it's getting even worse as firefights have broken out throughout the entirety of the northern regions of Pakistan and India between the two sides. And it does appear at this point that without a shadow of a doubt, this is now a state of war in between the two countries. We were able to hear over the course of the day that the Indians and the Pakistanis were continuing to make their diplomatic statements as usual, and we were actually able to see that the Prime Minister, or the Pakistani Member of Parliament, stated today, and I'm not going to show the clip, but I will rephrase what he said. He said that either the water can flow into the Indus River or the blood of the Indians will flow, and the Indians get to pick which it's going to be. Is it going to be the blood of the Indian people, or is it going to be the water flowing into the Indus River? That's pretty much what he said, with a picture of this guy in the background looking like he's squaring up right behind him. Don't know what was up with that.
Oh, I was a little like Big Brother, like from that 1984 book or something like that on the wall.
Oh, it's Big Brother. Hail, Big Brother. Strong and peaceful. Like start singing the anthem from like the movie or whatever. But anyways, moving on from that, a little bit of an interesting kind of like a look. For real, it's actually very dystopian looking. But moving on from that, we did get to hear from the Indian side that India did vowed armed retaliation. According to a top source in the Indian government that told the Indian Express, which is the publication that put this out, and I quote, "There will be military retaliation and we are prepared. We are discussing the nature of the strike. Since 2019, we have taken a series of measures to modernize our weapons. We have the option of targeting the terrorists from within our territory." So it appears that they're saying now that they are going to be conducting direct armed action against the Islamic Republic of Pakistan here within the very near future, which is a high likelihood considering that the Republic of India has already rescinded the ceasefire agreement with Pakistan recently, meaning that they're now no longer respecting the ceasefire agreement, and at any moment, major hostilities or the outbreak of war will be able to happen at really any given moment. And it largely seems at this point that both sides are getting ready for that, as Pakistan has now called up all medical personnel, doctors, nurses, paramedics, and ambulance drivers on standby in the districts of the Jhelum Valley and the Lipa Valley near the line of control in Kashmir, pretty much mobilizing all of the civilian doctors into service for the Pakistani army in preparation for mass casualties that will be seen in the outbreak of full-scale war instead of the border skirmish war, which we're hearing of right now. The Pakistani armed forces are continuing to rapidly mobilize as we continue to see more equipment on the move. We can see these moving by a pack of cows, and we can see out there in the distance, it appears to be a larger artillery unit that's on the move. We can also see this kid here posing in front of the camera.
That kid apparently has no idea that he'll probably be fighting in that war, so I wouldn't be so gleeful.
Man, he was like, yay! I was like, no! I was like, no, it's not going to be that good. It's a war between two nuclear-armed powers. Meanwhile, we were able to hear a rumor today that apparently the Pakistanis may have fired an well, actually, I want to make sure that I got that right. I thought I was about to misquote that, and I wasn't. There was a initial report that suggested, and it was unconfirmed, that the Pakistani army had actually fired an ATGM of some type at an Indian army outpost and did end up hitting it today, although we never got video or picture evidence of the incident. Nevertheless, the statement was made, which is giving us a bit of credence to say that that may have actually happened, although there's a lack of video and picture evidence to follow it up. Meanwhile, in the areas south of the northern regions of India and Pakistan, heading to the southern border of Jammu and Kashmir, we were able to see that mass firefights were breaking out in the area, as we were able to hear that multiple ceasefire violations are being reported along the line of contact. And this is, of course, a Pakistani source, so they stated the Pakistan army is giving a befitting response with developing story. So it appears
Also, Also, I like that they're so sensitive. They had to apparently turn off all the comments on their posts. They didn't want to get roasted, apparently, so they just left it blank.
Bro, they said we ain't having no feedback. Like they were like, dude, they said if you have any complaints, please submit it into our complaint box. And then you like submit the paper into like the slit on the top of the box, and it just goes straight into like a paper shredder or something like that. It's like we do not want any input back on what's going on right now. Meanwhile, we did get to see that there were firefights happening in the area once again, as we were able to hear that according to multiple reports, clashes between Pakistani and Indian forces have now spread to the Samani and Neelam areas along the line of contact. Samani is a key valley sector in the south, while Neelam is a mountainous region in the north. The fighting now covers multiple sectors, indicating a broader escalation compared to previous nights. Once again, showing that it's starting to evolve from a border war into a full-scale war. Meanwhile, up in the Lipa Valley, we got to see that there was some absolute hell breaking out as actual videos of the firefights were emerging, or at least brief snippets of them, which we can see right here. So it appears
seems to be pretty heavy fire actually right there. I'm kind of surprised by that. Sound like some small arms and maybe some larger guns.
Man, it sounded like small arms and big arms and even bigger arms than that. And we also got to hear that there were more firefights happening in this area. We had another clip actually letting us hear the sounds of these firefights happening in the Lipa Valley, which here's the clip. Oh.
Sounds like somebody's getting absolutely just crapped on.
Man, it sounds like whoa. Sounds like they're getting roasted up there. It sounds like they're getting, it sounds like they're getting the treatment. But beyond that, it does appear that there are firefights breaking out throughout the entirety of northern India and Pakistan at this point along the border, as it is quite clear at this point that both sides are getting on into a warlike state. Well, we already said that they went to war about a couple of days ago, and they technically did because this is a border war at this point, but it appears that it keeps on rising in escalations every day, and it's easily going to become a full-on conventional war here within probably the next few days. Nevertheless, Pakistan is sending mass artillery to the border today as clashes are beginning to heat up, and a lot of people are wondering, will total war break out? And it appears that many are saying that yes, it's going to be a total war. Others are saying it's a little too early to tell. Some others are saying that it'll be limited to a border war, and that will be all. But beyond that, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So about 53% said yes, it's going to be a total war between Pakistan and India, while 22% said no, it'll remain limited to the border, and 19% said it's simply too early to tell. And for some reason in the modern day, nobody wants to declare war anymore, but they'll still go to war with one another, but they won't declare it. And right now, I would say with those very heavy firefights taking place on the border between the two countries, that is, in my opinion, by definition, war. So it's not necessarily a total war just yet because they're not going all out and deploying tanks and all kinds of other equipment. They're heavier equipment, but it is fighting along the border. So the war is remaining pretty much limited to the border. But I think overall, though, as this escalates, and it does appear to be escalating with tons of artillery being brought to the border by Pakistan, and also India also threatening the hell out of Pakistan themselves and cutting the water off, that is probably going to end up being a total war before it's over with. But the big question is, how long is it going to take to get to that point? And right now, we simply don't know. But I don't see it de-escalating, especially with these border skirmishes starting to take place right now. So I'm with the 53%. I think it is going to get worse. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that, in my opinion, I would have to agree with the 53%. This appears as going to be a total war. And I just saw someone say 53% are watching too much TV. I don't think you'd be saying that if you were one of the people living in Pakistan right now who is facing the reality that the water in the Indus River is quite literally almost dried up completely already. So that means that you're not going to be having a nice cup of water from this point on until the water starts flowing through the Indus. So I would have to say I would agree with the 53% at this point. This is going to become a war because unlike every other border skirmish and every other incident between the two parties from 1960 onwards, this is the first time that we've ever seen where the Pakistanis are actually being deprived completely of their water source and are possibly looking down the barrel of absolute pretty much thirst and death from a lack of water and, death from thirst. I'm very eloquent with words tonight. And so for this reason, Pakistan is forced for that reason alone to go to war with India, so that way they can go up into the area of Jammu and Kashmir, or at least hope to be able to either destroy the dams or open the floodgates, so that way the water can flow back into the Indus, and that way they can continue to supply their people with fresh water, so that way they all don't end up dying. And let me go pull up the population of Pakistan really quickly, just to make sure, to let you all know what's at stake for them. The population of Pakistan currently is 250 million people, which is quite a lot. To put that into perspective, that's actually twice the population of the Russian Federation in this one country. And considering that 90% of those people are possibly not going to be having any fresh water, which means that it's the majority of the population of a little around 200 million people, or a little bit more than that, possibly might start dying of thirst because of a lack of water, and also every single piece of agriculture that they have in the country is going to collapse, and all of their industrial concerns are going to collapse as well. There is absolutely no way for this war to be avoided at this point. They have to, as far as the Pakistanis are concerned, they have to fight the war, because if they don't, they're either just going to be dying by thirst, or they're going to be dying in a nuclear hellfire if it came to that. So they're pretty much forced to do this. On the other hand, the Indians are pretty much forcing the situation, and it looks like they want to, because it seems as though, from what we're hearing, the firefights on the border are being started by the Indians, from what I was able to gather before the show. And it also appears that they are continuing to mobilize, and they also rescinded the ceasefire agreement that they had with Pakistan from the last border skirmish, and they're now moving on into a direct open confrontation with Pakistan by their own choosing. So the Pakistanis have to go to war because they're forced to, and the Indians are going to war because they want to. Pretty much both sides are going to war, and there's really no other way around it. So I'd have to agree with the 53%. Also, it seems as though Matthew is throwing up another poll here, a very interesting one at that. And this is on one that actually is really the crux of the issue right now, that is going to force both sides to war. And that is the control of the flow of water into Pakistan. Because evidence does show, and it's not really just evidence, it's actually video and picture evidence and hardcore proof by the Indian government itself, that India is cutting the flow of water into the Indus River via the dams in the Jammu and Kashmir region. And it appears that a lot of people are wondering whether this is a moral move or not by the Indians, whether depriving 90% of the population of Pakistan of fresh water and possibly leaving them to die of thirst is a morally correct thing to do or not. And it seems as though the majority of people are saying that it's extremely immoral. Some others are saying it's war and this is fair game, and some are saying that that seems very appropriate, and others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So the big deal right now in the whole war, like the enforcer was saying, is the water being cut going to Pakistan from India. And India did cut it off. And now they've opened the floodgates once again, and they've now caused floods downstream as a result of the water gushing back in. So it looks like India is playing some type of water war here. And that is an interesting thing to do, even in the midst of a war. So it looks like 47% said that seems extremely immoral, while 33% said, it's war, meaning it's fair game. And 9% said it seems very appropriate given the circumstances. And for me personally, I would never really truly support any country messing with the water, because that's really something that affects the civilians a lot more than the military. And the civilians are not supposed to be involved in the war. So to me, it seems extremely immoral for India to cut the water off. And not only did they cut it off, and thus leaving a lot of people downstream very thirsty because they can't get the water and potentially going to dehydrate, but also now they're opening the dams intentionally to flood the area, causing even more damage, which is even adding to the problem. So I would say that does seem pretty bad. And now, is it a war crime? I really do not know. I haven't done enough research to figure that out yet, but it seems like it's probably on the border of being a war crime, considering that it does affect civilians who are not involved in the war. So I'm with the 49%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm with the 49%. It seems to be extremely immoral. It's pretty much constructing a genocide that can happen if this situation is not fixed. If this situation is not fixed within weeks from this point, we will start to hear of massive amounts of death inside of Pakistan, most likely due to a lack of water. Agriculture is going to completely collapse due to it, of course, relying on water, meaning that there will not be a large amount of food available to anyone inside the country, once again furthering on the death that will result from this kind of an action. It is going to create a massive amount of deaths on the civilian population, which usually would be considered a crime against humanity. I've seen some people say that in the chat, that all is fair. And I've seen some of these people also, and like, I gotta say this really quickly to like the few people who say this sort of thing, because I don't really know like how these people justify these things. So when the Russians bomb a Ukrainian apartment building and they kill 10 people in that bombing, that's just abhorrently wrong and completely unjustified, which it is. But then when India starts cutting off water to hundreds of millions of people, and it's possible that around 200 million people or so could end up dying due to a lack of water, then it's just fair game. Like, it seems like there's a little bit of a different kind of a standard that a few amount of people are applying. I've seen it only twice in the chat so far in different circumstances, because how in the world are 10 Ukrainian lives more valuable than 200 million Pakistani lives? That just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and it seems like there's a little bit of a bias at play there on whose lives are more valuable. As far as it's actually considered from a realistic perspective, every single life of a civilian is valuable, whether you don't like the Pakistanis or you like the Ukrainians. One life being lost of a civilian through direct hostile action of another state is still largely considered to be a genocide or a crime against humanity or something along those characteristics. And I'd have to say that this
Also,
is a...
go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
I would have to say that this is just a wildly immoral thing, but go ahead, Matthew. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Well, I was about to say, someone in the chat mentioned that Gaza set the standard, and of course, that's another big contentious thing in the modern day is whether or not sending aid or not allowing aid to go into Gaza is a war crime in itself. I would say, though, the Gaza situation with Israel and Palestine or that area, that is much different than what's happening right now between India and Pakistan, because when they send aid into Gaza, that aid is actually absconded by the terrorists, and the terrorists get that and they use that to support themselves, and the civilians barely get any of it because the terrorists like to steal it and use it for themselves, and they don't let the civilians have hardly anything. So the water situation in India and Pakistan, totally different, because the dam is supplying water downstream to the civilian populations in the towns. There's no terror groups there. The group that actually did the terror act that led to this whole situation, to my knowledge, I'm not really sure how big they are, but they don't just operate exclusively there. So cutting the water off going downstream to all civilians, that's an overreaction, and in my opinion, it gets on the border of a war crime for India trying to justify cutting off the water to all those millions and millions of civilians. I just don't see the same thing.
And also, I see someone now saying, why should you send aid to your enemies? Well, you're not really sending aid, you're just allowing water to naturally flow down a river like it always has throughout most of history, so that way hundreds of millions of civilians aren't getting killed. I mean, under that kind of a logic, Russia shouldn't just go through and bomb a Ukrainian apartment block here and there. They should take every single Ukrainian living in occupied territory and punish them for the Ukrainian regime's sake by putting them in concentration camps, which is getting absolutely sick and absurd with that kind of a mentality. You don't go and extend your actions to where they just start killing swaths of civilians in the millions. Like, that just becomes absurd. I mean, honestly, if you think like that, you might want to go and seek counseling or possibly, read a book about what's wrong with you, because that's not a logical kind of thinking to go, yes, let's just start wiping out millions of people who are just, going about their daily lives because I'm a little bit too emotional. Like, it doesn't make any sense on that. And I see people continuing to try and justify it like I'm speaking from the perspective of an American. No, I'm speaking from the perspective of international law. And I'm also speaking from the perspective of the Geneva Convention, which is also international law as well. So that's what I'm speaking from here. I'm not speaking from like this little cushy perspective. You generally just don't go around trying to deliberately construct a situation that will kill civilians in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions.
So to answer the question, because I didn't know this beforehand, whether or not it actually was codified and it was actually illegal under the war crimes statutes, but it looks like under international humanitarian law, especially the Geneva Conventions, it says here specifically in Article 54, it prohibits attacking, destroying, removing, or rendering useless objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population, like water supplies, food, and crops. And the deliberate deprivation of water to civilians could be seen as using starvation as a method of warfare, which is illegal under the Geneva Conventions and additional war protocols. So it does appear there's a very strong argument that that would be a war crime. And that would make sense, actually, because it seems not very moral to withhold water from civilians, especially if the civilians are not involved in the war. Then that does seem like it would be something wrong with it. So it certainly doesn't seem very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't seem good to me at all. And to be entirely honest, the Indians are justified in reacting to Pakistan, at least due to the Palagram attack. But going this far, this is going entirely from responding to creating a constructed genocide. And if that's if it like I see some people trying to say it's justified. Well, if that's justified, then everything that's ever happened is justified. I mean, it would be justified for the federal government if you're an American citizen to literally just send the FBI to your house and then just execute you for no reason at that point because, they're the guys in charge. But that's not how the world works. We work on a system of laws, and we will largely try and work on a system of due process, or at least trying to adhere to some sort of basic realm of decency so that way we're not living like savages and animals. That's largely how we work. And I saw someone else say something, and this was just absolutely crazy, so I want to make sure to give fair dues to this one because I have never seen anything that would top this one, Matthew. Someone called Fajalar Henriksen said this, and I want to make sure that I quote this exactly. The Pakistanis are Muslims. You guys are too American to understand. I think I'm a little, maybe I am a little bit too American because that's one of the most racist things I've ever heard. That's literally about the justification the Nazis gave for putting Jewish people in concentration camps is because, they're just Jews. People are supposed to have the same kind of laws and protections regardless of who they are in the world. That's the point of international law. The international law doesn't exist for Christians or Jews exclusively minus the Muslims, or it only applies to Muslims minus the Christians. That's not how international law works. A civilian is a civilian, and regardless of whether they're a Muslim or whether they're of a different race or whether they're of a different belief system or a political party, a civilian is a civilian. And according to international law, they are supposed to be provided the same kinds of protections that anyone else would be provided. And the idea of cutting off water to about 200 million people and ending up constructing a genocide that will end up killing tens of millions of them before it's over at this kind of a going pace is an absolutely barbaric kind of a thing. Like maybe you're detached from reality if you believe in that sort of thing. And I'll be honest, folks, I try and explore some things with a bit of detached nuance to it. But I can't do that with this. Like, if you are even trying to support the idea of that, that's a pretty messed up thing. Like, especially if you were one of those Pakistani people, because like these random Pakistani people are going to end up dying of drought. Y'all are random people living in some other foreign country. How would you like it if another country controlled your access to water and you just ended up dying of drought one day, just because some other country said screw everyone living in that other country that you're in? That would be kind of messed up. I think a lot of people would start to see it then if it was affecting you.
So I'll throw a curveball. Here's somebody who said something very interesting in the live chat. They said, the viewer's name is the Magnolia. They said, by your logic, the boom on Japan during World War II was immoral. So what do you say to that?
What do I say to that? That was not immoral because, one, both Hiroshima and Nagasaki were military targets. We deliberately targeted military ports and infrastructure when we conducted those attacks. And back then, the kind of rules of war that exist today and the kind of international law that existed today did not exist yet. So that's kind of like saying, well, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson had slaves, so why don't you? Well, it's a much different kind of an era than the 1700s when George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were alive. Back then, honestly, no one even would bat an eye about anyone owning slaves, either in America or anywhere else in the world. But this is the 21st century. So we have kind of different laws and beliefs and practices about things. So at the time, when we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was absolutely nothing wrong with doing that, because that was just the way of war. Everyone bombed everyone like that. But once we evolved a little bit, at least in terms of our morals, we then started to say, well, maybe firebombing entire cities like Tokyo isn't exactly the right thing to do. And maybe nuking Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't really the right thing to do. So then we evolved our beliefs. But back then, it was perfectly fine. No one batted an eye. Nowadays, if we did something like that, a lot of people would be going, that's pretty messed up. So that's kind of the difference and the justification behind it, is that at the time, there was nothing wrong with it. Nowadays, there would be a lot wrong with it. We're not living in the medieval era where you can go around and take your enemies and then hang them by the hundreds off of the trees. We're living in a much different kind of an era.
Honestly, in my opinion, I'm not sure if a lot of people are going to like this answer, but the reason why I brought that person's comment up is it is actually a pretty good contentious point right there, because many people view the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings with the atomic bombs as being immoral. honestly, I'm not saying this to be a contrarian, but honestly, it was immoral. There's really no way around that. The atomic bombs caused a ton of civilian death and also suffering. But at the same time, though, not to sound like I'm justifying potentially a war crime here. And at the time, I don't think it was a war crime because there weren't any statutes against it. But now it would be. But back then, it wasn't when they were dropped. But Japan was not stopping the war under any circumstance. They were going to keep fighting until the very last man because that's just the way they were acting. And without the dropping of those bombs at the time, back during World War II, then Japan would have never stopped the war, and it would have led to the deaths of probably many, many more people than what were suffered during the dropping of the atomic bomb. So, not a good situation, of course. I'm not saying it was a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that it seems like it would have been probably justifiable to some extent to prevent even more death from occurring with Japan continuing the war into the indefinite future if those bombs weren't dropped.
But the thing about that though, like saying like it was wrong to drop a bomb on some cities that ended up killing tens of thousands of people, is that the reality throughout the entirety of World War II is that everyone was bombing civilians everywhere. The Germans were bombing every single British city they could under the sun and killed tens of thousands of British civilians in the process of doing that. Actually, hundreds of thousands, if I remember correctly. The British and Americans did that in exchange to the Germans, killing hundreds of thousands of their civilians in those bombings. The Germans did that to the Soviets did that to the Germans, the Japanese did that to the Chinese, we did it to the Japanese. Everyone was doing that back then. It was not considered a great thing, but at the time, it was just considered a part of war. It was a part of total war because there was no way to accurately, precisely bomb a target without taking a single bomber over that target and then having it shot down. That was just kind of the understanding at the time, was that to be able to hit any target, you pretty much got to fly several hundred bombers over a city and just mass saturate the thing with bombs, and something will hit the target. But nowadays, that is not at all what we do. Nowadays, the idea is that you're supposed to be able to precisely hit a target and minimize civilian collateral as much as possible, because now we have the abilities and have continued to work towards those abilities, so that way we don't see that the kinds of barbarisms that were conducted in the Second World War are conducted today. So it's like saying, like, to justify immoral actions of today, it's like saying, well, back in the day, here in the South, a certain group that will wear white bed sheets would go around lynching people. So why don't we do that today? It's like, well, we kind of evolved beyond that and realized, wow, that's really messed up as shit, and kind of completely goes away with due process in general for a citizen of the United States. So probably not a good thing to do that, and we got to make sure that that's specifically a felony for those very reasons. So you can't always just go back 70 years ago and 100 years ago and go, well, someone did this back then, so, it's totally justified to do it now, because we have moved on from that. Or we're supposed to have learned from that or developed from it.
Also, another thing as well is when the atomic bombs were dropped on Japan at the end of World War II, that was at the end of the war. That was not the beginning. What India is doing is they're essentially dropping the atomic bomb before the war is even really kicked off. They're already cutting the water off before the war is truly started in the total war phase, which is they're jumping to the most extreme thing right off the bat, which is obviously another big red flag. But the atomic bombs weren't the first thing that were ever done to Japan. We fought them traditionally all the way up until that point. And only at the moment that the United States determined that this country is not going to back down without something extreme happening to them. So in order to save more lives, we're going to do this one act right here, which could be argued as being immoral, to try to save more lives. At the time, and once again, it's still a bad thing. Like, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but that's just the logic behind it. There's sometimes bad choices you have to make in life, and that was one of them. And I think overall, it probably led to the best result, even though it did lead to death. Because it would have led to more death if they'd have gone any further.
And also, I see some people continuing to try and make arguments. I also saw someone say, hello, Muslim is not a race. Well, the guy said Pakistani people are Muslims, and that's why they're not people. That's like saying, oh, well, these people, living in Poland, they're Jewish, some of them are, so they're not people. That's literally the same argument that the Nazis would make. You can call it whatever you want, but trying to say Pakistani people specifically don't deserve any kind of protections under international law because they're Muslim still ends up becoming a racial thing, because it's still trying to apply some sort of a thing across the board on all Pakistanis, that they're not really people, or they don't really deserve some kind of protections for one reason or another, which generally is not how international law is supposed to work. It's not really supposed to have any kind of dissertations about, oh, by the way, if they don't meet these criteria, then they're not really people, so you can just kill them all. That's not how international law works. So I hope that addresses that the best I can. I'm going to leave it there, though, because I think that there's really going to be no way to win that argument, because it seems as though the people who are continuing to try and push that forward are not going to give it up, because they're saying stuff like, well, go ahead, Matthew.
Also, side note as well, not to jump a little bit off the topic, but some people were saying, let's see who said it. Ed Seifert said it. He said Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not firebombed. They were used as an example of the new power of the atomic bomb. Honestly, I've always wondered this, just a side note. If the atomic bombs were not used at the end of World War II and nobody really truly knew their power, if that hadn't taken place in Japan, where the U.S. used them in a limited sort of form like that, because they weren't necessarily, we weren't using them as like traditional munitions. We used them very limited to make a point, and then we stopped. And then we said, let's not use them ever again, because we've proven how destructive they are and how deadly they are. And we all agree across the entire world, we don't want to ever see that happen again. And most people said, yeah, we don't want to see that happen. That was very bad. If we wouldn't have done it, maybe another country might have used it in a more heinous way, a way more heinous way, and caused a lot more trouble if people hadn't seen how deadly it was at the very end of World War II. I wonder if it ended up worse if we hadn't done it first.
Well, the thing that's kind of debated about using nuclear bombs on Japan is that they were about to surrender. People don't want to say that. You know, we always want to say, oh, we would have had to land on the mainland and millions would have died. But the reality is that they were about to surrender. What we nuked them for, really, was that the Soviet Union was about to invade the Koreas. And we wanted to generally try and stop the Soviet Union from completely taking the Koreas and force the Japanese to surrender before they could happen. So that's, like, kind of really the strategic reason of why we nuked them. And we also nuked them so that way we could see what an actual atomic bomb would do against a real city, instead of a mock-up target in the middle of the desert in Nowheresville that had nothing around it. So we picked Hiroshima and Nagasaki because they had generally been untouched by the fire bombings that we conducted on larger cities like Tokyo and Osaka earlier on in 1945, which literally reduced those to just complete rubble, and generally killed hundreds of thousands in those instances. But we used Hiroshima and Nagasaki to really figure out what kind of damage they caused, and then we figured out that they were wildly effective at causing a considerable amount of damage with the incredibly simple singular bomb. So then that's when we were like, well, this is the way to go, just to continue to develop these, because then we'll be able to make sure that in the future we have such a powerful weapon that no one would really want to touch us. And then the Soviets made one 7 years later, and then, you know, that created the whole nuclear arms race that we saw. But beyond that, that was generally kind of the historical reason why we ended up nuking Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It wasn't really to stop the war early. It was really to stop the Soviets from taking the whole of the Korean peninsula a little bit too quickly.
Interesting. Me personally, I always saw it as a way to really end the war and also send a warning to the rest of the world that the U.S. has a power that really pretty much no other country really had at that time to that degree. Now, obviously, they developed it shortly afterward. And in fact, tell me, Enforcer, since you know history better, how close were, I think it was the Germans were the next stop. How close was it until they actually had a working nuke?
We believed it probably would have been like by the middle of 1946 or towards the latter into 1946 that they would have had a fieldable nuclear weapon. But the reality is that was going off of like the early war timetables. By late 1943, after a British covert operation destroyed the heavy water facilities in Norway, it was understood the Germans would really never be able to create a nuclear weapon within the time frame of the war. No matter when it ended, they would have never been able to make one during that time.
Yeah, I think I agree with the person that was in the live chat saying that the atomic bomb usage on Japan was basically a way to quote unquote vaccinate the world against using nuclear weapons as a normal form of warfare. It truly was. And I think actually, even though the scientists that developed the nuclear bomb knew its destructive power in theory, until you actually saw it, like actually being used in an actual practical warfare scenario, like it was used in Japan, people were not going to fathom how deadly it was until they saw that. We obviously got to witness that, the horrors of it, and it was indeed horrific. And everybody decided, even the enemies decided, let's not use those. Like, that's the best thing to do is let's shelf those, put them away, and we'll use them as a deterrent, which some people say has prevented a lot of wars from happening. So to me, it's just a tricky one. I'm going to stop right there before I get too deep in the moral talk right there. But it's a tricky one. Like, atomic bombs are very tricky, and using them in World War II, I can see where it'd be contentious to a lot of people.
And also, I keep seeing people bringing up questions, and like, I just don't know how people are not getting this. Like, people are like, well, you know, ISIS killed like 70 Christians in Somalia, so that ought to justify us like genociding these people. No. What you do, this is how it works, folks. This is how it works, at least in our system of laws that we have, because we don't run a country like Mad Max, and we're not a whole bunch of nonsensical barbarians. So this is what you do: you find those specific people and you drop bombs on their head. You drop Ginsu bombs on them and things like that. You find those specific people and you kill them specifically because they're terrorists. But you don't go, wow, well, some Somalis killed 70 Christians, so we're going to go into Somalia and systematically kill every man, woman, and child in the country for repentance against the crimes they committed against these 70 Christians. You don't do that. Because if we do that kind of a thing, then why didn't we do that in Germany? And why didn't the British do that against the American colonists in the American Revolutionary War? And why didn't the Union do that against the Confederacy in the Civil War for the crimes that the Confederacy could have been claimed to have conducted through the course of that war alone, much less the institution of slavery itself? Why didn't we do that against the Germans in World War I or World War II? Why didn't the Soviet Union do that against the entirety of Eastern Europe, and for multiple different reasons? It starts to become a little bit of a slippery slope there when you start trying to justify things like that, because it starts to completely go in the face of the kind of systems of laws and due process that we created, or at least minimizing the whole, killing people unnecessarily sort of a thing. Because then at that point, it's like, are the people we're supposed to be idolizing people like Mao Zedong, who killed 40 million people, or Stalin, who killed 23 million? Are we supposed to look at those people and go, yeah, they had it right, because they just go take people they didn't like, and then they just go and kill them in the millions? I don't really think so. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to move on into a question segment, because we do have some incredibly good questions, and I want to make sure to get to them before we move on into the Chinese invasion of a Vietnamese island, and also the Ukraine war as it was happening today. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so it's time to jump on to our news here, or not our news, excuse me, our super chat questions. And also, I want to say up front, if I have missed your super chat tonight, because I've been like super overwhelmed with the chat and also trying to do the polls tonight for some reason, I think the migraine is still like causing me some lag in my brain a little bit. Let me know if I've missed your super chat and give me a shout in the live chat. Yell at me if you need to, and I will return back to it. I think I have them all, hopefully, but if I missed one, let me know. But jumping into our first super chat here, this one goes to Lord Cog, who puts in a very generous $100 donation. And thank you very much for that support, Lord Cog. And that's very generous of you, and we appreciate that. And he said, thank you for what you do.
Hey, and a huge shout out for that massive support, Lord Cog, and thank you for what you're doing to help this channel to keep on running, because we always yap on this channel all the time in roundabout circles every day for thousands of days. But it's folks like you who support this channel that make it a reality for us to be able to just yap in circles like we do. And I got to thank you massively for that, because folks like you are a massive part of this channel. No one has to support this channel a single cent or a single dime. But nevertheless, people like you do. Y'all go out of your way to do it. And that's how this channel becomes a reality each and every single day. And so a huge shout out to you once again, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And so with that, thank you greatly. It's a wonderful thing that you've done, and I've got to thank you massively for the support. And so with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one, but also really quickly, got to address this one. DBS fans in the chat said, I'm an Indian. I will stand for my country. And you don't even know the history of the two countries and emotions. And India's not going to block water for eternity. Grow up. Well, I'll show you growing up right here. It's actually looking at your own minister who made the statement yesterday, India's water resource minister, Patil, who stated, we made a roadmap with 3 steps. The government is working on short, medium, and long-term measures so that not a drop of water goes to Pakistan. Desilting of rivers will be done to divert them. So I don't have to grow up. I just have to read exactly what your own government minister was saying yesterday to be able to know that this is a long-term diversion of water resources. Like it's literally in the news. So, like kind of not really working off of just emotions here. We're working off of what's actually being said by your own government. So, if you don't want to believe that, don't know what to do, but that's what he said.
And also, just because we're saying that we don't like the act of cutting off water to civilians does not mean that we don't necessarily support India's right to defend itself, because India was attacked. Like, I think that's pretty much agreed upon at this point. But at the same time, though, there's people that do argue that this is an overreaction, because the group that did this to India Some people were saying that they were backed by the Pakistani government, and some people were saying that they acted independently. Honestly, I'm really not sure. I really can't tell based on the evidence that we're seeing, but cutting the water off doesn't seem to be the right answer. India can deal with the problem without affecting the innocent civilians. So I really don't care who it is. Anybody doing that, I'm not in favor of it.
Yeah, like I'm not in favor of that. That's just going straight into a war crime. It's responding to an act of terror, which is a crime, by conducting a war crime that makes that original act of terror look like nothing in comparison. Like that's the reality of it. That's like the United States saying, for the attack on Pearl Harbor and the deaths of U.S. sailors without a declaration of war, and also the death of some civilians that were near to the harbor during that attack, we are going to go into Japan and kill every single Japanese person alive. Like that's literally the kind of response that is being given at this point by India. Is pretty much saying, we are going to burn their fields, salt them, and ensure that no food ever grows again in Japan, so everyone starves to death. That's just insanity. Like, you can't do that kind of stuff and have a decent conscience. I mean, I gotta be honest here. Like, I'm gonna just be honest. People who think like that have to be some kind of a psychopath. Like, if you don't like hearing that, sorry, but you got to be a psychopath to think of like that, because those are people. Like, a lot of these people don't even have a stake in anything that's going on. A lot of them are just like y'all, just trying to work their jobs and get by and pay rent. Most of them don't even know what the hell's going on, and they're going to end up getting killed in the middle of this whole thing because the Indians want to cut off the water supplies permanently. Like, that's just messed up. Because I know Americans, like, I would find it stupid for anyone to come over here and start trying to just genocide Americans en masse, because the reality is that 90% of them don't even know what the hell they're doing day to day, much less what's going on in the world, and much less why these random people are coming over here trying to kill them. Like, that's the same thing that would be going on in Pakistan. That's the same thing if the Pakistanis did that in response to the Indians that would be going on. It's messed up. So that would be my response to that. But still, moving on from that, huge thanks to you once again, Lord Cog, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it's folks like you who make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second super chat of the segment goes to Danny3648, who puts in a generous $25 donation. And thank you very much, Danny, as well, for supporting the channel and helping to keep us running also. And Danny says, with the current political situation in the world, will Narva in Estonia be the first point for Russia to test our commitment to Article 5?
That is a very interesting question, Danny, and I would say possibly so. Narva's in a very interesting position. It's right outside of St. Petersburg, and if the Russian Federation wanted to have some kind of a defensive justification for an offensive war, probably the best one they have is Narva, because Narva is on a major highway in Russia, the E20, that goes directly from the Estonian border straight to St. Petersburg. So if they wanted to make an argument that anywhere would be where a war needed to start with NATO, it probably would be Narva, or it would be somewhere near to Vyborg, which is inside of the Russian borders, but somewhere in that area as well. That would probably be where a war with NATO would begin, although there still would be major fronts beyond that. I feel like Narva would be a major push for the Russians offensively into the Baltics, but the most important offensive they would conduct would be inside the Suwalki Gap, because through the Suwalki Gap, they will be able to close off the entirety of the Baltics from the rest of NATO by land, which would be a severe hindrance for the NATO defending forces inside the Baltic. So while the war would probably start off with firefights at Narva, the main offensives and the main battles would actually be happening in the Suwalki Gap down here. But still, a very good question there, and I got to thank you so much for the support, Danny, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so with that, a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and also, I mean,
Are you seeing the India bots, by the way? Like, we're actually getting like India bots in here. Like we said this before the other night, the hatred between Pakistan and India is off the charts. Like, it's like some of the worst hatred between two countries that we've seen pretty much anywhere globally. There's hatred between places. Like for example, Iran and Israel, they truly hate each other. Like, there's no doubt about that. But Pakistan and India, they really hate each other. Like, it's really bad. And I'm seeing the bots coming in tonight with some crazy statements. Like, I don't get too big into this, but they're coming in with a lot of racist statements tonight, to be perfectly honest. And the hatred is starting to flow over with the bots even coming here talking. So that's quite crazy.
I would have to say, man, I'm going to have to put this down as law. I can't text this to you. I would text it to you, but I'm just going to tell you. anyone who's coming in here supporting the concept of conducting a mass genocide by depriving the Pakistani population of water is going to have to be banned, because we're not going to be having people around here who are openly supporting genocide. There's no justification to that. That is a 100% genocide that would be happening against him. I mean, hell, that has the exact same justifications to this genocide as Adolf Hitler did for genociding the Jewish people in the Second World War. So we're not going to be having that. From this point forward, effectively, if you put it in a statement like that in the live chat, it is going to be banned, and you are going to be banned from the channel, because I'm not going to be having a whole bunch of crazy people coming in here saying that the Pakistani people are subhuman, less than human, and also on top of that, plus they're Muslim, so we need to make sure to kill them all. That is absolute insanity. There's no other way to work around that. So with that, I hope that does address that well. I hope that lays down a new law for the channel, because I never thought we'd have to get into a situation where we had to start banning people off of their hatred for the Pakistanis. Never thought that would be something we'd have to address here on the channel, but nevertheless, that is going to be a new law codified into the LSA books. I'm 100% behind people supporting India in this conflict, considering that the attack that happened in Pahalgam was largely, or at least from what the Indians are claiming, orchestrated and supported by Pakistan. But that does not mean that India gets a blank check to conduct a genocide against 200 million people. That does not mean that. So with that, hope that addresses that the best I can, and it is time for us to move on into the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting right on back into the rest of the news.
All right, so our last super chat of the segment goes to Uncle Vampy, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Uncle Vampy, for that $20 support and also helping to keep the channel running. We do appreciate that. And thank you for donating to the Bot Defense Fund, which now we have bots from literally every country in the world coming in and trying to flood the chat. We have them from Russia, China, India, Iran. We have bots from literally the whole globe. I think we're probably the most universally attacked channel from bots that probably exist on the internet. But thank you, Uncle Vampy, for that support. They said, checking the super chat and showing my support in LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Uncle Vampy. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, our great friends from Transylvania, because, crazily enough, everyone from Transylvania is a vampire, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. So a huge thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and making it possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so, with that, gotta address one more thing before we move on. Now people are coming in here going, well, I guess free speech just died on this channel. I hate to tell it to y'all, but there's never been free speech on this channel. This is a pro-Western, pro-American channel, but there's also a little caveat behind it. I don't let people come in here and support genocide and crimes against humanity. So, no, if you believe in free speech, that's great. You can go out into a public square, or you can create your own YouTube channel and say whatever you want. But YouTube isn't a free speech platform either. It's a private company that has its own rules. And this channel is its own company in its own right that has its own rules as well. We only allow people in here if they're pro-Western and pro-American. That's not really up for debate, and I also don't have people sitting around openly supporting genocides on our channel, and we let that slide as a quote-unquote free speech kind of a thing. If you want to genocide the Pakistani people, I think that's pretty sick, but if you want to go and yell that out in a public square in your hometown, by all means go ahead. That's technically free speech, but that's not going to be happening here on this channel. So with that, we are going to be moving on from the news inside of India and Pakistan, and we're going to be moving on into the remainder of the news tonight, as we have been able to hear of something pretty crazy that happened inside of the South China Sea near to the Spratly Islands, as the People's Liberation Army, Navy, Marine Corps actually seized an island inside of the South China Sea that was controlled by the People's Republic of Vietnam. This island is a fairly small one, but is a sovereign island of the People's Republic of Vietnam, and Chinese armed forces today hopped onto the island, actually amphibiously landed onto the island and seized it in the name of the People's Republic of China. This is the first time that we've ever seen an action like this being conducted by the Chinese, and technically, by all means, this is an armed invasion of sovereign territory of the People's Republic of Vietnam. We've never seen anything like this in the entirety of the situation in the South China Sea, and this technically means that China has taken a direct armed action against the Republic of Vietnam effective today, which we haven't even seen in direct form, even against the Republic of China on the island of Taiwan. So a little bit interesting with that. We are going to be seeing where that's going. We don't know what kind of response the People's Republic of Vietnam is going to be making But it does seem as though there could be an incredibly strong response by Vietnam over the situation, considering the violation of sovereignty that just occurred while I was trying to stop myself from choking. But nevertheless, today China seized a Vietnamese island, San Clay Island in the South China Sea, and some people are wondering, will this cause a war to erupt? And it does seem as though the results are coming in right now, but it seems that people are split in between the idea of Vietnam simply protesting the action or actually forcefully attempting to retake the island from the People's Republic of China. Some others are believing that they'll be totally ignored, and some others are undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this right now? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So this is a very big story, which hasn't gotten very much attention today for some reason. I think it was buried by the major Iran situation going on at their port. But Vietnam's island was seized in the South China Sea by China, which is crazy. They had guys standing out there, like we just saw, with a Chinese flag saying they took it. And granted, the island was uninhabited. And I believe there was a fishing post and also a Vietnamese government post on the island, I think. So it was generally uninhabited, but they did have some resources there on the island, and it was a Vietnamese sovereign territory that China simply just took with no resistance, which is crazy. But is it going to cause a war to erupt? 41% said Vietnam will simply protest and no war, while 35% said yes, Vietnam will try to retake it, and 12% said it'll be totally ignored. And I don't think they can ignore this because China did just take their island, so they have to say something. But I think they'll simply try to protest it, and I really don't see Vietnam going to war over that uninhabited island. But certainly, that was a cheap shot by China. They did something there to basically stiff Vietnam, but Vietnam's probably not going to do anything about it because it is uninhabited. But it's still a bad move by China. So I'm actually with the 42%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I believe the Vietnamese may actually try and retake the island because Chinese presence on the island may not be permanent. So they may just be able to send out a group of their own forces to just go, quote unquote, retake the island. And then it'll be back under Vietnamese control technically again. But some people I've actually seen in the chat have been a little bit confused about the situation between Vietnam and China. And some people said, "What? Are they not a friend? I thought they were always a friend, a great ally." And they were never allies. They were never allies, actually, because there's this cool thing that happened right after the Vietnam War ended called the Sino-Vietnamese War. And this one was actually pretty neat because China went to war with Vietnam and invaded them only 4 years after the Vietnam War ended. The Vietnam War ended in 1975 with the invasion of Saigon by North Vietnamese forces. But once the country was unified under the communist banner, it was only 4 years later that the Chinese would actually end up invading Vietnam through the north and would end up sparking a war that would last about 3 weeks and 6 days, which resulted in casualties that were quite significant. The Chinese claim that they lost about, and let me make sure here. Let me make sure. The Chinese claim. Hold up. I want to make sure. Okay, hang on. So the belligerents. So the Vietnamese had, I'm trying to make sure to read this. This is actually a very confusing casualty graph here. So the Chinese claimed that only 7,000 of their guys were killed. The Vietnamese claimed that nearly 42 to 57,000 Chinese soldiers ended up getting killed in this war. That only lasted, mind you, for 3 weeks. On the other hand, the Vietnamese, the Chinese estimate, they ended up killing about 62,000, 48,000 Vietnamese soldiers. But no way you split this hair did this turn out well. And since then, Vietnam and China have not really been on the best of terms, and that's why we've actually seen that in recent modern history, Vietnam has actually become a large trading partner and somewhat of a diplomatic friend with the United States of America because they believe that would help them to have a little bit of a standing against the Chinese again. Nevertheless, they're not great friends, just to put that out there, and that war certainly goes to prove it. But nevertheless, this situation right here in the Spratly Islands really is really just a continuation of the 9-dot line that Mao Zedong made in the South China Sea, and the current People's Republic of China is just trying to forward that ambition of claiming everything that's supposedly supposed to be Chinese land, even if it means once again putting themselves into confrontation with Vietnam. So
is that before or after Mao Zedong or Mao Zedong?
Mao Zedong. Call him Mao because he's bringing in Zedong.
I tell you what, I don't know how to pronounce it. You say Mao Zedong sometimes. I hear people saying Mao Zedong. I don't even know.
So you can say it either way, but the way people say it nowadays is Mao Zedong, like this. But then he says Mao Zedong. So I don't know, dude. I don't know. I call him Mao
This guy
Zedong.
was an asshole. Like, whatever you call him, he was an asshole.
Dude, he was like, beat puppies to death. And I was like, bro, why? It's like literally he was like, did you know that, Matthew? He had a thing against like dogs and pets in general.
He had a thing against people, too. I think he massacred a crap load of people.
Yeah, like 40 million of them. He actually killed more people than anyone else in history, like pretty much through genocide. So, yeah, pretty crazy guy. Like, actually, crazily enough, Mao Zedong was such a brutal guy. He actually made the amount of people Hitler killed by constructed genocide tame, because Hitler only killed about 11 million people through constructed state genocides. Mao Zedong, in a single 2-year period, killed 40 million people. Like that's for nearly 370% more people that Mao killed through genocide than even Hitler. And Hitler is considered to be the worst. This guy did 370% worse than him, which is a pretty crazy thing. And he doesn't really get a lot of credit for that.
Credit.
Like,
I mean, yeah, I get some discredit for that.
well, no, I mean, like, you don't hear people go, he's literally Mao. Like, you hear people go, he's literally Hitler. That's the kind of credit I mean.
Well, yeah, but I think it's because Mao was pretty much limited to his region by doing that horrific activities that he was engaging in. Meanwhile, Hitler, he was trying to do it to the entire world, basically.
Well, but still, I mean, like, this guy, though, it's like, Hitler trying to do it to the whole world, he got 11 million people, which is terrible, but Mao got 40 just in his area. So it's like, that's still worse to me. I mean, 40 million people, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean they're both horrific. Like honestly, they're both really bad. But yeah, Mao Zedong, he's not really like mentioned too much. Like I think unless you're a history person, most people don't even know who Mao Zedong even really is.
Yeah, most people don't. Or, you'll see him on like a t-shirt here and there, kind of like Che Guevara, which I'm like, do y'all really know who's on the shirt? What?
Yeah, where do you see them? Where do you see people walking around with a shirt of this guy on it?
Well, let me go pull it up here real quick. Mao t-shirt. Let's see here. Hold up. I gotta find the right one.
I don't know where you're walking through, but you might be walking through somewhere sketchy if somebody's wearing a Mao t-shirt. That's the wrong block.
I actually saw this one before. It was a white shirt with that on it, but I've seen it before.
Man, I'll tell you, if I see somebody wearing a Mao t-shirt, that person is deep in shit. Because if for somebody to know about this guy and then wear a t-shirt about him, they are probably not somebody you want to meet.
But the more common one is the Che Guevara t-shirt, which you can see right here.
Yeah, I don't even know why people go around idolizing this guy either. People go around wearing this guy on a shirt. I've actually seen people actually wearing this one. I hadn't seen people wearing the Mao shirt, but I've seen people wearing this one. I'm like, that guy was like a communist, right? It's like, nobody really knows that.
Man, I actually heard about like his final hours, man. He was trying to be like all poetic and everything. I think they captured him in Colombia or something like that, and they were going to execute him. And they were like, so what's on your mind right now? Like some journalist was there for some reason, and Che was like, my brothers of the revolution are on my mind. So when they went to go execute him, you know what he did? He tried to make a run for it.
He tried to make a run for it.
Yeah, instead of being like a hero, like I'm going to die a martyr for my communist cause, he like tried to like bolt and run away. And then I think he got gunned down as he was trying to run away. But I was like, man, that really kind of like went in the face of what he said literally like 3 hours before. He was like, I'm going to be a martyr for the communist cause. And then as soon as they're like walking him out, he's like, I'm going to bounce. And then he like took a run for it. It's like, okay, it's like kind of not really what you said you were going to do there, but all right. Still got taken out either way. But beyond that, getting back to the whole invasion of a Vietnamese island, a pretty crazy thing. Nevertheless, moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into the Ukraine war news because we still have a lot left to go. Also, by the way, I got to put this out there because this is kind of one of the biggest developments on Ukraine today. Zelensky and the President of the United States actually sat down and spoke inside of St. Peter's Basilica inside of Rome, which is right here. This is this giant building right here. They actually sat down and spoke inside of it for a while, and after the one-on-one talk was done, we then saw that the President of the United States put out this statement on social media, which appears to be a complete shift from prior statements and beliefs on the war in Ukraine. And so here's the statement in its rawest form. No matter what deal I make with respect to Russia and Ukraine, no matter how good it is, also let's just skip past here, Wait, hang
You
on.
gotta go all the way to the bottom, man, because the whole top part is just freaking horrific.
Yeah,
It's
let's
all politics. It's right there where your mouse is.
with
That's where it
all
starts.
so we're going to skip past the whole essay written above it, which is just too political to read. With all that being said, there was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities, and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently through banking or secondary sanctions. Too many people are dying, or let me read it in the right way. Too many people are dying. So, nevertheless, it appears that the beliefs about Russia and Putin on the war in Ukraine are now taking a complete 180 at this point, and now we're starting to view the Russians as shaking us down. Maybe that is exactly what they're doing, and I think that is exactly what they're doing, but we will see as time continues to pass. Moving on from that and into the area near the Polish-Kaliningrad border, we also got to hear that a Russian helicopter today violated Polish airspace over the territorial waters of the Baltic. In connection with the violation of the airspace, Polish air defense forces were put on full combat alert for some time today. We also were able to hear, outside of that news, in Moscow, that Putin is now claiming that Russia has full control of Kursk, which we can see in this clip right here. Also, man, that is a very good frame of Putin right there. Someone ought to make that our next thumbnail, Putin, for our next video coming out.
That's how he looks when he meets with Xi Jinping, I think.
Mr. Xi, will we put cows on Mars? Or something like it's like, bro, it's like
Looks like he's drinking something through a straw.
honestly, man, it looks
Sucking
like
a straw.
honestly, man, it looks like he's getting a visit from Chris's mom.
Looks like he's about to pull a hot dog, man.
Aw, man. But anyways, here's the clip.
Поздравляю весь личный состав всех воинских подразделений, принимавших участие в разгроме неонацистских формирований, вторгшихся на российскую территорию в Курской области. Авантюра киевского режима полностью провалилась, а понесенные противником огромные потери, в том числе и среди наиболее боеспособных, подготовленных и оснащенных, в том числе и западными образцами техники силами ВСО, а это штурмовые подразделения, спецназ, безусловно, отразятся на всей линии боевого соприкосновения. Полный разгром противника в Курском приграничье создает условия для дальнейших успешных действий наших войск и на других важнейших участках фронта, приближает разгром неонацистского режима.
And that was
Gerasimov said, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I'm terribly drunk on vodka. Can you say it again?
I like how he's gotten so paranoid, dude, about people trying to kill him that he even has Gerasimov on a giant television in front of him instead of just having him there in person.
Yeah, and is it just me or does this office look horrible? Like that wall that's behind Putin, like from this camera angle right here, it looks like the wall of like maybe like a school cafeteria or something like that. And also, it's like, you know, it's true. Like he really is bunker boy. Like he stays hidden away so much now. He's gone from like literally, like you mentioned, going from the long table, like the 10-foot table with the other person on the end of it, to literally teleconferences now.
Dude, I like how Putin's like, here in Russia, we're very traditional people. We don't believe in having those stupid little Gen Z and millennials in the Zoom calls. They need to come back to office in person. Meanwhile, I will not talk to anyone in person, only Zoom call. Like, it's like, bro, it's like you're turning into exactly what you claim you're against. Like, bro, he's a goof. Anyways, they supposedly found the guy who blew up the general yesterday. You could see here some of the casings that ended up blowing up in the car. And crazily enough, they found the guy already. The whole reason why I'm saying that sarcastically is because do y'all really think this is the guy? They just found some guy off the street. Because don't y'all find it funny that every single time a major attack is conducted against a Russian anybody, they find the guy in less than 24 hours? Like, this is not the guy. This is Smeagol from Lord of the Rings here, also known as Gollum. And they just grabbed him off the street and beat him enough to tell him that you're the guy who planted that bomb and you're going to say that on state television. Dude, it's like they want us to believe, man, that the Russian FSB is so good that when a Russian general is blown up, they can find the guy who blew him up within 24 hours. But apparently FSB isn't good enough to just foil the plot in the first place. It's like, oh, so they're that good. It's like, oh, okay, they're that good. So they cannot stop the attack, but they can find the guy who did it less than 24 hours later with absolutely no leads and no evidence because they didn't even know the attack was happening in the first place. That is truly an amazing intelligence force right there.
I think anybody with the expertise to pull off a hit quite like that one we saw with the general right there or the Russian official, then they probably know better than to leave tracks behind and literally leave behind a calling card. They probably know to like destroy the evidence. And with this guy being found that quick, that means there was a lot of indicators pointing back to him, which doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, I was like, this is just lame. But they supposedly found the guy. Just putting that out there for y'all. Meanwhile, moving on from that, we did get to hear that they also claimed today that the North Koreans, for the first time ever, were officially involved in the battle in Kursk. That is, by the way, like a filter mask thing that they put over this guy in the middle of the picture. He wasn't actually wearing that out there with the North Korean guys. Like, got to clarify that here. But also, man, who the hell is this guy, dude? This guy looks
looks like he's had a mask put on him too, man. His face, he looks like that guy from Mission Impossible. You know when he stretched that like fake face over his like actual face, and he went with a disguise. It looks like that,
dude. He looks like that girl on The Last of Us 2, like a show thing on TV. Like, you know the girl I'm talking about who has like a tiny face like Charlie Kirk. He looks like that.
Yeah, or he's got a humongous forehead, one or the other, because that helmet barely covers like a third.
Dude, they call this guy in North Korea Jungma Kirk, and he goes around debating North Korean college kids on campus about the glories of Juche ideology. Like that's what he is. Meanwhile, we also we just have everyone else who's kind of just uneventful. There's really no jokes to be made there. But we also got to see this guy who was absolutely mogging in the middle of his picture.
What the hell is he doing? And also, what's this dude doing with the newest iPhone out here on the front line, dude? That looks like the newest iPhone they got on the market. Dude, and that guy's staring at it like, oh my God, is that the iPhone 13?
Dude, you know what's on that phone?
Well, I don't know what you want to say.
Yeah, illicit pictures. Probably that's probably what it is.
Oh my God,
he's
what
like,
is that?
He's like, they did what with a cup?
The guy holding the phone said, oh, I bet you hadn't seen nothing like this before. And the other guy said, wait a minute, zoom in.
Man, you ain't from Ham Hong if you never done this before. Man, anyways, moving on from the pictures of the North Koreans, we also did get to hear an official statement from Gerasimov in what appears to be like an obituary picture that he was sitting in today for his portrait thing, that the North Koreans were involved in the Kursk offensive. So here's the clip.
Отдельно хочу отметить участие в освобождении приграничных районов Курской области военнослужащих Корейской Народно-Демократической Республики, которые в соответствии с договором о всеобъемлющем стратегическом партнерстве между нашими странами оказали значительную помощь в разгроме вклинившейся группировки вооруженных сил.
That's the end of the clip.
I don't know how Gerasimov can be alive and act so dead. Like, he's the most dead alive person I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, he would be the perfect guy to make like a song, dude, because in Russia, was he like, every single day I live, but in reality I'm dead. You know, something like that, like one of those deep, dark Russian songs. Like, he would be perfect for that, man. But also, I see a load of people, man. Honestly, man, I don't know if you've seen the chat, but some people have been making some of the worst jokes about what was on that phone, man. Some of them are just diabolical, like horrendous, but they are good. I'm not going to read any of them off, but I wanted to acknowledge that I saw them for those of y'all who wrote them, and I absolutely hate that I know what some of y'all are actually mentioning there, but that is also pretty funny. Moving on from that, though, and on into our next clip, we also get to see a school that was on fire in the area. No one explained why it was on fire, but it was on fire. Moving on from that, we also got to see that some Russian assaults were stopped today by the 36th Brigade. Apparently a little bit too good, because it was a little spicy, apparently. We also did get the air defense report, and we were able to hear that the Russians launched 113 drones, an Onyx anti-ship missile, and 2 X-31P anti-radar missiles, of which 66 drones were shot down, and 31 drones were suppressed by electronic warfare measures, which is a pretty successful day, all things considered. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we also got to see some really cool looking training of a Ukrainian on a motorcycle with what appears to be an electronic warfare package in his backpack, sticking out two antennas, which makes it look like he's riding a motorcycle with two katanas on his back, which is pretty cool.
Man, those are the biggest like tires and wheels I've ever seen on a dirt bike. I think anywhere. Like those tires are massive. Like the tire never reaches the actual like dirt guard, like the top of the fender right there. But that thing's literally almost scraping the fender.
Dude, they said, "What kind of wheels do you want?" He said, 36-inch. Like he's like, "Yeah, I want the biggest ones."
I wanted to be like him in the circus, yes.
you know those unicycles that the Russian circus bears ride on? I want those wheels. Like I want those, the big ones. But we also see them riding around a little bit more, riding around in a row with Ahmed Sharapova. Also, some sort of a detonation going on off the road beside them while these guys are riding on an ATV. And then finally, in this last picture, we get to see the ATV and the bike from another angle, but still pretty neat overall. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also get to see Ukrainian MiG-29 carrying some JDAMs. And JDAM! Look at that bomb down there. Very nice. Like to see it. And, I gotta say, a wonderful thing. And moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also get to see the Russian casualty report. And, no Bobcat skid steers again.
0 Bobcats again. I think they've wiped out the whole supply at this point. They're getting low, one or the other.
Man, honestly, I think it is getting low, but Miss Deesa, keeper of the records, was able to give us a decent insight today. As Miss Deesa stated, that a drop in troop losses to levels during last summer, so million milestone now forecast in early June. 70 artillery is tied with April 19th as the 15th highest day, and 145 supply trucks it ranks as the 21st highest loss. Now, let's get into the details here. 1,110 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 5 APCs, 145 supply trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 70 artillery pieces, 1 Air-18 drones, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and that was all. But still, it wasn't that bad of a day. As far as we were considering it, it was a pretty good one, all things considered. Moving on from that and up into the northern area near Vovchansk, we also get to see Ukrainians taking out Russians. As they had an audio of a phone call, and the phone call was something like, "Man, I'm so real." Well, I'm not even kidding. I think it said that at some point in it. But we can see the drone flying around and finding a Russian soon. Trademark. Oh, and they're lining
It's
her
really
up.
just sniffing around, really. It just like goes around sniffing. So, oh, look, it like they sniffed out something.
Man, they found him.
Oh.
And we see them dropping another bomblet on the Russians, blowing away the timbers. Shiver me timbers! Yar!
Someone said, another 200 billion taxpayer dollars wasted on Ukraine considering that they're losing. Oh, please give me a break. You bots have to come up with better lines than that. That line right there is about 3 years old.
$200 billion later. They're losing, as they've like survived an onslaught for 3 years that they were only supposed to survive for like 3 days.
Yeah, if they were losing, they would have been done in 3 days. Like the Russians swore they were going to finish the war in 3 days. No, I'm sorry, a special military operation. I'm sorry.
Man, absolutely crazy thing. We see them hitting some artillery. We now see them going for more Russians in the trees.
Yeah, Russians in the twigs, more like it. These trees are like freaking butchered.
Man, we got Russians in the sticks.
Man, they're living in the sticks. They came from the sticks. They're living in the sticks, and they're also apparently dying in the sticks too. Like sticks, too many sticks.
Bruh, out here in Alabama, we call that chisholm.
Oh, man, no, that's not the sticks. That's the hood.
Man, what would be the sticks in Alabama then?
Clanton.
Hell no, man. There's got to be worse than that. I mean, like, let's think. Let's think here. Let's really grind our gears.
Elmore County.
No, that's not really the sticks. Oh, come on. Let's see. I know the sticks, Matthew. I know the sticks. Atmore.
Maybe. Let me see. I have to think about it some more. Pretty much the whole state is the sticks, minus Birmingham, Huntsville, Montgomery, and Mobile. Everything else is the sticks. But
Oh, you see them hitting a little antenna right there. Blew it to pieces, they say. And that's the end of that clip right there. But moving on from that and on to our next clip further on down the line, we did also get to see at Krasnoyarsk some more drones getting hit hard. And take a gander at this. Oh, and they're just knocking them out.
Someone said, do you believe the use of drones in warfare to be moral or immoral? It depends on who the target is. The use of drones is really not a question of being moral or immoral. If it's weapons are weapons in war, unless they're banned by a convention. Drones aren't banned by a convention. If drones are being used on combatants, totally legal, totally moral. It's war. If they're being used on civilians, that's not moral, nor is it legal. So it really just depends.
I think here, Matthew, we would have to use the Grabble test, which lays out four rules that we have to meet for it to be moral or immoral. First, it must not cause unnecessary harm. Do drones cause unnecessary harm? Well, only to your ego. So the answer is no. Second, does it end up killing civilians, or does it go out of its way to do that? None unless if the operator does it. So it meets that test as well. Also, another question is it on your mama? The answer is yes, so it's good. But the reality is, no, drones are completely moral. They don't cause undue suffering. You know, if you get hit by a drone, it's a pretty quick, easy death. The second important thing to me is that it's just another utility like any other in a war. It's a technological innovation, so that is what it is. It's not one that's just, like, it's not like the civilian killer 9000, like it flies into a town and starts killing civilians in droves. So generally to me, it seems like it's perfectly fine. Totally moral in my opinion. But moving on.
It does suck though. I will say that. Like if I was in a war fighting as a soldier, combatant on the ground, and I was having to deal with drones that could pop up out of nowhere at any time, and I wouldn't really hear it coming until the very last second, that would be creating much more hellish conditions than just fighting a traditional war without drones for sure.
Also, I see some people saying, well, I mean, if you went to a town with a drone and just started wiping people out with it, well, yeah, but that's the same argument you can make with any weapon. Like, if you go into a town with an M4 and you start greasing people, like that's about the same thing. So it's like, should we ban guns from war too? It's like at that point, that's really just down to the operator. And that's something that a lot of people don't distinguish enough, is that you can use a car to kill people. You can run people over with a car. Like, people don't really, process that in America, but cars kill more people than most other things do in America right now. About 40,000 people die a year from car-related accidents or getting hit in car collisions, either directly or inside of their own car. Cars are extremely dangerous and deadly, but still, used properly, it shouldn't be killing anyone. And that's kind of the same thing with the rules of war. Like, you can use just about any single weapon. You could use a rifle, a spear, a bayonet. You could use a drone with a bomb on it. You could drop a 5,000-pound bomb on someone. Hell, you could drop a thermobaric on someone. As long as it's not causing extreme undue suffering, like a long and slow and painful death, and as long as it's not killing civilians, then it's totally fine for the large part. The reason why some weapons are banned, like, for example, poison gas, is that poison gas doesn't actually really kill people, funnily enough. Like, even the worst ones, like mustard gas, really didn't kill people. It either maimed them, and if it did kill them, it was an incredibly slow and painful death. And that's why it was banned, is because it was incredibly unfair and also pretty cruel in the way in what it did to people. Now, that's also why some people are like, so wait a minute, you can just kill someone but you can't drop poison gas on them? Yeah, because generally in war, it's supposed to be kind of like a gentlemanly thing. If you get shot and killed, that's just like a part of war, but you don't want to make people unduly suffer in the process of having to kill them because you're in a war. So that's kind of how the whole thing works in between, is something really moral to use in war or not. Is it making them unduly suffer, and is it only going to target civilians? If the answer to those two things are no, then it's generally fine to use. But there are still caveats that have been made to that in multiple different categories, like the size of grenades. Like, grenades have to be largely around a certain size. Like, they can't get too small, because then it's called an exploding bullet, and exploding bullets are considered to be incredibly inhumane. So those are also banned as well. But it's a whole conundrum with that. But anyways, moving on from that and into Touretsk, we did get to see Russians hiding in the pipes. It appears that the Ukrainians were being called plumbers today because they were clearing out them pipes. And they got them in the pipe.
Oh. Oh dear. What's the deal with the Russians climbing in pipes and crawling up sewer drains these days? Like they're like getting to be like rats in pipes, like everywhere.
Dude, they are like getting obsessed with pipes, man.
Uh oh, that dude just said, "Here's Johnny."
Yeah, he did.
I didn't even know the movie. I just saw him doing the mouth thing. I was like, I think he said, "Hey Johnny." I've heard that somewhere.
Man, I saw the movie The Shining. It honestly isn't anything worth watching, man. A very slow build up to kind of like a lame resolution, honestly. But anyways, moving on from that and on to our next clip. We're going to be muting that because apparently they're playing like Euro dubstep. But we can see the drone flying into the water tower and hitting the Russian position dead on, knocking it out. We can also see them hitting another antenna right here.
Man, they do hate antennae. The Russian propaganda have you believe the Ukrainians hate technology. That's why they're blowing this up. They're just so primitive that they hate technology. It's repulsive to the Ukrainians. So they want to blow it up. Adam McLean said, "Did these guys just insult a totally classic movie? I've never even seen this classic movie, I'm afraid. I've simply heard that same phrase said my entire life. Here's Johnny." I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Who's Johnny? What's he doing? Why is he here? Like but we can see a MiG-29 dropping bombs on a Russian position in Zaporizhia. And yes, I don't like The Shining. Like, I just found it to be, like, I know a lot of people consider it to be a classic. For a horror movie, it just wasn't really good enough to me. Like, it didn't really meet the criteria. Oh, you see them popping flares and chaff and making their way out. And, oh, dead on hits across the entire tree line.
Is it just me? I don't really like horror movies. I personally really don't. I watched that stupid thing. What's that one called with the blood's running down the wall? It's like I think Amityville Horror or something like that. Amityville Horror House. I watched that one. I was like, I'm never watching another damn horror movie again. I hate these stupid things. Not because I'm scared of them or something. It's just I just don't like them. I don't like this junk, this dark like movie. I want to watch something that's a little more intriguing than this.
Honestly, man, though that was like a lame horror movie, man. You could get so many good horror movies that are actually scary, but that one wasn't really that scary, and The Shining wasn't really that scary, because of personal reasons. I'm not even going to go into why, but it just wasn't scary. My personal experience, I've had scarier things happen to me in my normal life than what happened in The Shining, just putting it that way. Anyways, moving on from that, and out of that, a little bit of news that we just got in the southern front in Zaporizhia. Y'all are not going to believe it, but we do not have a speech tonight from Zelensky. So for that reason, we're not going to be having a break. Matthew, there is no union-mandated break tonight. Get to work, because we are moving on into the second question segment, where we get to talk to all of y'all. And boy, howdy, you folks, do we love this question segment. And we got to get into it fast tonight, fast. But we are going to be getting to chit-chat with each and every one of y'all for possibly an hour and a half here about anything y'all want to talk about. Anything at all. We are, of course, going to be getting to the super chatters first. A massive thanks to all of them for supporting the channel and going out of their way to do that when they don't have to. But right after that, we will be getting to as many live chat questions as we can. And so, I hope that does address that well. And before we even get to the super chats, Coljack said, have you guys seen the movie 1917? I think Matthew has. I know I have. Matthew, did you see that movie? Yeah, it was actually pretty good. I liked it. It was just
a one take.
Yeah, it was like the continuous cut. The continuous take that wasn't really the continuous take. It was like 7 continuous takes put together, but it was still impressive. I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it wasn't bad. Like I think the one take thing was kind of a gimmick, but it wasn't a bad movie.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad movie. I like the environment building that they did because it was very, very realistic to the pictures of the front in World War I in multiple different areas. So I was really impressed with that. The plot was kind of like, the plot really wasn't there. Like the plot was literally laid out at the beginning of the movie. They're like, go give these orders to this guy. And like the whole movie is them walking to go give the orders to that guy. And then they give the orders to that guy and the movie ends. Like, that's literally the whole movie. There's not really, like, that much of a plot to it. But it was still a really, really interesting movie, and I liked it. Also, Paths of Glory. Paths of Glory was an interesting one. I think that had, let's see, who's the guy, Matthew, who was in Falling Down? Do you remember that guy who, like, was talking about the cheeseburger, and he wants something from the breakfast menu, but he had to get something from the lunch menu and all that?
Hold on, wait a minute. Let me think. I think it was it Michael Douglas? Was that him?
Yeah, so his dad, Kirk Douglas, was the main actor in Paths of Glory. And Paths of Glory was an anti-war movie made in 1955 about the French army in World War I going through a mutiny because of what was basically stupid suicidal orders. And then because of that, they got 3 random people from the regiment and then had them executed for cowardice. That was the whole movie. Very, very good movie. It was a very interesting one. But generally, though, I don't really like the movie for certain reasons because it was written by a communist. Like it was a okay movie, but the thing is that the guy who wrote the script for that movie, who was Trumbo. Trumbo was an open communist. Like he was also a guy that got blacklisted during the McCarthy Red Scare era, and was also brought in front of a congressional congressional inquiry by the people right ahead of McCarthy. But the thing with that is that while a lot of people in the Red Scare were wrongfully gotten for being communists, Trumbo was actually an open, avid member of the Communist Party and openly supported them even while he was writing the script of Path of Glory, or Paths of Glory. So I was like, it's like you could kind of tell that there was like this general undertone, why fight for the big guy? What's the point? And it's like, it's like I didn't like that. He also did the same thing in a whole bunch of other scripts that he wrote. And Michael Douglas generally, Kirk Douglas generally actually would be one of the few actors that would play act his scripts out on film. But I generally don't like the idea that most of that was written by a communist. I was like, I don't really like that too much. So with that, I hope that does address that. Well, at least why I kind of have like personal aversion to the movie. And that wasn't a bad movie actually, and Kirk Douglas is a pretty good actor. But there was like some general underlying like morals or themes to the story that you could certainly tell were trying to like undermine the kind of American mindset that was prevailing at the time. So that way it would make it a little bit easier for the communists to make a good argument. And then when the communists get in charge, they do all the same things that that we were doing in the U.S. already. So it's like, what would the difference be? Like that's the thing I don't really get with that. But anyways. Let's see. Also, I saw Fiuma say, All Quiet on the Western Front, I recommend. The first one was good. I've never seen the second one, but I heard critical acclaims of the second one being incredible and even better than the first. And from what I could tell from like the small clips I saw on YouTube of it, because it's like a Netflix original, it actually looked insanely good, and the actors were even German, considering that the book is actually written from a German perspective of the First World War. So it looked incredibly good. Just that I've never personally seen the whole thing, but I really want to watch it. I think I'm going to probably try and watch it soon, whenever I get the time, because it actually does look like a pretty good movie. So thank you for the recommendation on that one, for to jog my memory on that one. And let's see.
I will say the new horror movies though are busted like really badly.
Yeah.
Like I saw someone say that horror movies are dead. You're right, because when they like announced that horror movie that involved like Winnie the Pooh, it was like Winnie the Pooh of Nuts and Honey or something like that. No, what was it called? I think I'm wrong. What was it called?
Let's see.
Winnie the Pooh of something and honey. Not Nuts
Winnie
and
the
Honey.
Pooh, Blood and Honey, or something like that.
Yeah, Blood and Honey. Yeah, I saw that, and also I saw the Popeye one where they had Popeye acting like he was a lunatic and a psychopath and murdering people. I'm like, okay. I'm like, they've lost. Like, I didn't like horror movies to begin with, but those are just like, they're honestly like parodies or something. I don't even know what they are. They're really not horror movies. They're all bad though. Like it's just like, who came up with this, and also who approved this for a movie?
There was a couple of horror movies that I've watched that were pretty okay. They're not always going to be great, but they were pretty okay for what they were. But those
Popeye the Slayer Man, that was what it was called. Someone
Popeye
said
the Slayer Man. Yeah,
Popeye the
yeah,
Slayer Man.
dude.
Oh my god, cringe.
Dude, honestly, man, those are cash grabs. But I want to see him though, just because the concept is hilarious, dude. Popeye the Sailor Man going around killing people. I mean, that's just crazy, Like that's just silly. But let's see.
And also that new horror movie, that Snow White movie, that ought to be classified as a horror movie with how bad that one
Oh
went
my
down.
god. Dude, people have not let up on that thing yet. Like, I keep on seeing this meme of, like, the main actor. She, like, stuck her jaw out in, like, one frame, and they just keep making memes of it. I can't get away from them. Every time I open up Instagram, there's, like, 20 of them. And I'm like, I don't even want to,
Honestly.
like, I'm honestly over the meme now. Like, it's like, and they still keep coming up.
Honestly, I'm telling you what, like, no offense to the girl that was the actor in that thing, but she's not really cut out to be an actor. That would be like me becoming an actor. I'm not cut out to be an actor, and that was like she went and became an actor and really wasn't like fit for the job. It's like, you know, you just got to realize if you're good or bad at something. It's like I wouldn't become an actor for the reason I'm not good at acting. Like it's not my forte. And you know, I just don't understand. I think her acting career is over though, effectively with that one.
Hold up, let me go type in jaw meme because this ought to find it.
You can't show that, man. It's gonna be anything you show about that's gonna get us hit with a copyright.
Oh yeah, because it's Disney. Someone was like, "Can you show it?" There was one that was so funny, dude, because it actually put the corncob pipe from Popeye the Sailor in her mouth, like when she did that, and I was like, "Oh, that's brutal." I was like, "That's brutal." It was funny, but it was brutal, really. But beyond that, like I'll say this. That girl didn't really have a lot of grace about the movie not going well. She like went into denial, and she also started blaming people for, you know, like A, B, C, and D reasons. And it's like, but the thing is like the movie was just bad. Like I actually never watched it, but I went and saw someone summarize the whole plot of the movie from beginning to end, like every detail of it, which was like in 20 minutes or so. And they changed the whole story. So this time around, there is no like Prince Charming that comes and saves Snow White. It's actually Snow White leading a communist uprising, pretty much, against the ruling power, which is the evil witch. That's the whole movie. Like that's the whole movie. It's not even the same plot as the original Snow White story, which is, you know, famously acclaimed at this point. And that one, like crazily enough, the original Snow White that everyone knows from the Snow White movie. That story is not even close to being the traditional German one that it's based off of, but it became famous because, you know, it was a lot more like mellowed out, and it was something that families could enjoy instead of, you know, it being nightmare fuel. But then this one went and said, okay, what if we take everything that everyone liked about the original story and then we made it about Snow White, you know, being called Snow White, not because she's Snow White, which is why she was called that in the original story, but because she survived a snowstorm, and then she's also going to lead a rebellion. She's going to lead a rebellion of, like, dwarves against the ruling class. Like, it's like, this is just a stupid plot.
And also, I thought the witch was supposed to be ugly. Why'd they make the witch way more attractive than Snow White? I'm just saying.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that makes no sense.
The witch is like a 10. It's like, what the witch is like the most attractive one in the movie. And also, I didn't think it was supposed to be like that.
And also, man, like this is actually something that was a little bit even more interesting. So, like, because I actually went and looked into this a lot because I heard about how bad it was a flop, and I was like, how in the world can it be that bad of a flop? So this was even crazier drama behind the scenes, man. So the actor that played Snow White, don't know her name. Is it like, I think it's like Rachel Zegler or something like that? I don't know. But anyways, she is pro-Palestine all the way. And as you may know, Matthew, the actor that played the evil witch is Gal Gadot, which actually served in the Israeli Defense Forces for several years. So there was a whole thing that went on with that where the Snow White actor was like, hey, by the way, all Israelis are like pigs because they don't allow the Palestinian people to be free and all this sort of thing. So there was this whole drama that went on between those two, apparently in the middle of production, where at some point they weren't even allowed on set with each other. And because of the hate that was being put towards Gal Gadot, Disney had to hire an armed security team to be with her for months through the course of that. And then eventually the Snow White actor just like ran her mouth so much, kind of like Hot Dog Man, that Disney actually had to bring in a PR team and remove her from actually controlling her social media accounts and have a PR team control her social media accounts for her. So it was just an absolute just shit show behind the scenes on the production of it, as well as, you know, just the chemistry between the actors, but it ended up producing an absolutely terrible film, and it showed in the box office. But you know, you would think that eventually the people would learn, you know, don't mess with the source material too much, because the reason why it's a successful story is because that was the working formula. So tweak it a little bit, but don't, you know, just go and radically change the whole thing. And then they radically change the whole thing, and, you know, it turns out poorly. You know, it's like that should be expected. But
Yeah,
anyways,
you gotta be careful tweaking.
yeah, so you got to be careful tweaking because Hot Dog Man does it a lot and it did him bad. But anyways, it is time for us to get on into some questions. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our final poll question of the night. This one is right back to the Russia-Ukraine topic. It says the U.S. president says that Putin is, quote-unquote, tapping him along, and we'll deal with Putin differently now. And what are your thoughts? The 35% said Putin will be given a free pass, while 26% said Putin will get severely punished, and 28% said it seems like a 50-50 right now. And honestly, it seems like a 50-50 right now, because he said he's going to deal with Putin differently, and he also alluded to banking sanctions and secondary sanctions. But at the same time, though, we don't see any concrete commitment to doing that. So he didn't give a date when he was going to do it, and he didn't say he was going to do it for certain. So it sounded like another veiled threat against Putin, but not a commitment. So I'm a little bit on the fence. I'm with the 29%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say I'm in the 50-50 camp as well. The statements kind of flop from one thing to the next every day, so it's really hard to tell until actual definitive action is made. So with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it's time for us to get on into those questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
Also, one last thing before we jump into our super chats. I want to give a shout out once more to United 24, because if y'all did not know, we actually announced this a short while back. United 24 is running a fundraiser to help demine areas in Ukraine, and it's called Step by Step. That's what the fundraiser is called, and it's the demining fundraiser. And I think the Enforcer is pulling that up right now so we can show it on the screen. And they've actually gotten super close to their goal. They're well over $1 million raised. And when we shouted it out, it was about $80,000. So I know several people in the LSA have gone over and donated to it. Obviously, they've been letting me know over email. So a huge shout out to everybody that has supported their fundraiser and also making it possible to demine parts of Ukraine. But as you can see, they are I think 200,000 or so away from hitting their $1.5 million goal. And they're demining several different areas inside of Ukraine, including areas around churches, also some forests, and also, I think, an old hospital as well they're demining from. So, of course, it helps out Ukraine, and we're more than happy to shout out for United 24 to help raise awareness for their cause. But, Enforcer, what do you say?
And I got to say, it is an absolutely amazing fundraiser. It's helping to save lives and make sure that the citizenry of Ukraine is not dealing with a wildly dangerous situation where everything off of a paved path may have a landmine sitting there waiting to take someone's life. This is an absolutely amazing fundraiser. And of course, United 24 has been doing incredible work inside of Ukraine for years, ever since the beginning of the war. And if you would like to support them, all you have to do is type in on Google United 24 demining, and you can find this page here directly and help to donate directly to United 24 to help them out in this demining project. It has gotten incredibly far since the last time we shouted this out. I would love to see that the Lee Spring Army was able to help them to get over the top, so that way we could ensure that there are further actions being taken in support of American and Western interests inside of Ukraine by the Lee Spring Army, and that the citizens of Ukraine will be able to have a safer life than they had before by having these demining efforts fully funded and conducted. So hopefully we'll be able to see the Lee Spring Army will be able to help the United 24 program get over the top on this fundraising goal and help them to achieve a safer place for the Ukrainian citizenry to live in so far. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best we can. Huge shout out to United 24 again for reaching out to us and wanting to work with us directly on that, and also for giving a massive shout out and thanks to the Lee Spring Army for all of the support and fundraising that they've done in the past in support for Ukraine over multiple years at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and it is time for us to move on to the next one. But before we move on though, I saw someone say something in the chat. Let me go see here.
Someone said something.
Someone said something, and let's see here. Everyone's talking about nice work. I can't find it, so I guess we'll just be moving on now. But what we got, Matthew?
Oh. All right, so our first super chat of our last question segment tonight is going to go to Adam McLean, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Adam, for that $20 support and helping to keep us running, like always. And we appreciate it, Adam. He said, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3.
And you're here! Hi, it's great to have you here. Great to have you here. And it appears that the super chats are working. Like I don't know what's going on with it, because a lot of people were saying at the beginning of the stream that the super chats are not working, and it seems like they might not be. We had a lot of people throwing super chats tonight, though. Some people were saying that apparently YouTube is censoring heavily what people are able to put into super chats, so that may be an issue, is that people are putting censored words in and then it doesn't want to let it go through. I'm not entirely sure so far. But still, an interesting thing nonetheless. I do thank you for the support, though, to Adam McLean, and making sure that it is working. And you know something, folks, that I want to bring up. I want to bring up today. I want to bring up right here, right now. I want to bring up something that I was very impressed with, and that is Matthew's video that he put out today. Because Matthew's video is number 1 out of 10 right now for the last 10 videos we've uploaded on the channel, and many people have watched it and enjoyed it today for its news coverage and its ability to sift through the facts and get right into it. Very nice thing to see. We love to see it. And also, one other thing. Matthew, I wanted to do this while it was on my mind because I completely forgot about this. Today, folks, I went on a journey. I went on a little short journey, and it was one of self-fulfillment of a sort. I went down, and you already know what it is, Matthew, but I wanted to pull this up for everyone because maybe they'll find it interesting. I went down to the Norris Rail Yard today in Irondale. And while I was there, I went there late enough in the afternoon, and I actually got to watch the Amtrak train pass by. And it actually passed by, Matthew, on the track closest to me, because you saw the video I made of it. But beyond that, I also drove around the rail yard a little bit more, and right over here somewhere, right around here, there was these really cool flat cars that appeared to be owned by the Department of Defense, and they had some sort of weird flask things on top of them that had radiological symbols on them, and I have no clue what those things were at all. So I'm actually going to try and figure that out for all of y'all, because I've never seen anything like that before, and I did not know that U.S. railroads handled anything that was radiological of any kind. So
I didn't see anything. Honestly, like, I'm not sure what you saw. I didn't see anything on these tracks.
Let's see. You just joshing, man. You weren't even there.
Must be something in the water or something.
Let's see. U.S. Railroad nuclear flat car. Let me just put that in. Maybe we can find something here. Images. Anything of a flask, of a weird looking, like, flask container looking thing on the back of it. Because you saw a little picture that I took of him, Matthew. It was really neat looking. And I can't find anything right here on it, man. It's a little interesting.
It's nuclear waste. Like, I promise you that's what it is.
Let me type that in then. Nuclear railroad nuclear waste flat car. Nuclear waste. So
they don't transport nuclear weapons on rail. That's something, like you mentioned to me earlier. That's something the Department of Energy does, and it's by road. And they have specialized trailers that have specialized fire suppression in it, with Bearcats and all kinds of local PD escorting it.
Yeah, and also, man, I found the nuclear flask rail cars, and it's a very interesting kind of a car. Like, not at all close to what I've seen. You see right there, though, the DOD X marking on the side of the rail car, but that's not what I saw. You saw what I saw, like a little glimpse of it in one of the pictures I showed you, but it was like a series of containers, and they were very cool looking containers, though. So let me see, U.S. Railroad nuclear... I put in nuclear waste flat car. That's what came up. So let's see. Let's put in radiological.
It could be fuel rods. I mean, that's the other possibility. They could have a specialized transport for fuel rods.
Man, it's interesting because there's not really a lot of pictures or examples of these things that were on these flat cars. And they'd stack them too high, and you could fit about 3 of these things on a standard flat car. 2 high, 3 long on each flat car, and they had like 5 of them out there in this rail yard, and I'm not seeing a single example of the little oh, there they are, dude. Those are it exactly right there. What are these?
Those look like munitions containers, actually.
But if you look carefully, though, you can actually see a nuclear symbol, like a radiological symbol on them right there. What are in these containers? Because, look, there's like more pictures of them now down here. Like, you can see them again right here.
That could be some type of munition that simply has a radiological component in it, and it could be nothing significant, but they have to put that on the side for like protocol reasons or something. But it looks like it's probably munitions of some sort.
I'm interested to know what these are. Like, Railcar mystery solved in Geneva. Let me go click on this real quick because it seems like this was like raising questions for other people. So what are these? Cars were labeled near
Oh, depleted uranium. That could be it. Depleted uranium tank shells. That would make sense.
Wait a minute. Dude, these are much lamer than you would think. It's contaminated soil.
For the Department of Defense.
No, apparently this is being run by some other group, and they just happen to have it really militaristic looking. And apparently, I swore, dude, that I saw DODX on the bottom of one of those flat cars. But this right here, like these that were up in New York, wherever this was, in Geneva, this was apparently owned by some sort of a private company. But once again, same little containers, like you can see them right there. And they were explaining that apparently this was like contaminated soil that was being removed from some like site in New York State somewhere.
Man, just dirt. Just nothing but dirt.
Let's see. And it's going to an out-of-state federal disposal facility. And let's see. So yeah, so it's apparently like, and also on top of that, it's not even like high contaminated, like high radiological contaminated waste or anything like that requires like a significant amount of protection. It's like incredibly low amounts of radioactivity. But that's really interesting though. Maybe like someone just said it. Texan Dave said maybe it's 3 Mile Island soil. Maybe it is because they're cleaning up that the reactor 1 to get it back up in operation. Maybe they're cleaning out some of the surrounding soil or something under the reactor at this point, and they're going and getting rid of it. Maybe. Who knows? That's really interesting though. And also someone said East Palestine crap. I bet nah, because that wouldn't be radiological, and they wouldn't put the radiological sign on the side of it. And that would be some sort of other kind of like a contamination or hazard sign that they would put on it. But
it could be Chris's mom's clothing that are transporting to a waste site.
Oh, that's terrible, dude. That's terrible, but true. It's sadly true. But anyways, with that, I hope we got down to the bottom of that because it was pretty interesting. And there were loads of people down there today, man. There was like 10 people standing around the tracks down there, like taking pictures. I was like, wow. I was like, there like people
I
actually
don't understand those foamers. I don't understand them.
Dude, well, it's a free hobby, man. How many hobbies can you get into that are literally free? Like none.
Oh, I've got a perfect free hobby. I sit right here at this desk and stare at the screen. That's my free hobby.
Bruh, that's sad. Sounding like that's sad. Honestly, looking at trains,
but that's what makes the show
sadder.
work, though, man. That's what makes the videos work. I mean, that's our job. It's not sad. That's a reason to rejoice.
Well, I suppose. But anyways, it's time for us to move on to the next one. What do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
All right, so jumping into our next super chat of the night, this one is going to go to none other than Kiwi, who put in a $100 donation, and that is $100 New Zealand. And thank you very much, Kiwi, for that 100 New Zealand donation. And we appreciate that. Massive support, by the way. And they said, I haven't solved the USD option yet. Still working on it. And thanks, Team Enforcer, from Kiwi.
And a massive thanks to you once again, Kiwi, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it's perfectly fine. I think the only person who ever figured that out was a viewer from a while ago. I think his name was Mark. And he would switch it around in between New Zealand dollars, US dollars, and Canadian dollars, literally in the middle of a stream sometimes. I don't think anyone else has ever figured out how to do it. I think with a VPN, you could probably do it. But beyond that, I wouldn't really know. Still, I thank you for the massive support because that is huge and helps us to keep this channel running. And we thank y'all, the Kiwis, for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep yapping here in the middle of the night and keeping all of y'all company and covering all that news. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And also, I see many people, Matthew, coming to the defense of the rail fans and the foamers. So I'm glad to see that there are some people in here who respect them foamers. Because, man, the foamers were pretty chill, man. Like, I was, like, driving by, and one of them was, like, waving to me. I was like, hey, that's a pretty chill guy right there. He seems to be having fun, you know, just hanging out down here.
They waved at you?
Yeah, like, they just, like, a friendly little wave.
You didn't stop, did you?
No, I didn't stop. Like,
okay, good. Because if you stop, like, you know, that's on you.
Dude, if I stopped, the person would have come up to me and they would have said, "Pop quiz, what is on track 16?" I would be like, "I don't know," and then that would have been summarily executed, because that's how it works in like that kind of a world. So I was like, I cannot stop. I'm scared.
Well, they'll throw you. Well, one thing, they'll put you to work on that train track, and then you'll find out what real work's about. Oh man, manual labor.
Whoa, I mean, this guy isn't exactly Milton Smith, but he's not running a railroad. You know, something like that. You wouldn't get the joke. It's a Louisville, Nashville kind of a thing, Matthew. You wouldn't get it. You're not an insider like that. You know, I'm just kidding, by the way. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next support goes to none other than Andrew Barbaro, who puts in a very generous $50 support. And thank you, Andrew, as well, for that very generous support. And once again, I still like the Smurf profile picture right there. I like that. And Andrew said, knowledge is the base of truth, and we appreciate the knowledge you share so we can find the truth.
Hey, that sounds deep, honestly, Andrew. I thank you for the support, and that's pretty damn deep. But I'm always happy to share information. Sometimes my information is not exactly correct, but still, I hope it's interesting information that helps people to get on the right track, finding the exact info, nevertheless. And I got to thank you so much for always appreciating it, Andrew. You've been around for an incredibly long time here on this channel, years at this point, and I got to thank you so much for always enjoying it and always sticking around, because it's the old timers that really make this channel worthwhile running. And it's really cool to have new folks come on that eventually turn into the old timers from being around for so long. But it's kind of crazy to think that with some of y'all, like in your example, Andrew, we've been able to keep some of y'all around for about 3 years now, and even longer in some instances, just being ourselves and doing what we do. And it's really shocking to think that anyone would be able to stick around for about 3 straight years with us, because I'll be honest, I always think that people would get tired of me in about 2 or 3 months. So it's really shocking to see that some people can stick around for over 3 years and still enjoy the channel greatly. And so huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on into that next one.
And our next super chat goes to Remy Andre Roxanoli Olsen, who puts in a $20 donation. Now, I love saying that name, by the way. That is such a good name. Very interesting name. Old-fashioned name like groceries. Not really. I'm just joking about that part. That was a reference if y'all knew it. But thank you very much, Remy, for that $20 support. And it said, testing super chats. It works. No clue. But LSA, great work. Love the news. Well, not really. Sort of terrifying lately, but I love your coverage of it. And LLT, LSA.
Hey, thank you so much for the kind words and the support. We love to know that people are enjoying this channel, and we love to know that people want to keep it running.
Wow.
And thank you so much greatly for that, all the way from Norway, throwing in that Norwegian kroner. We love the kroner. And I gotta say, the news is scary. It's somewhat terrifying sometimes, but I'm happy to know that we were able to give the news to all of y'all. At least it's not news like the nuclear bombers are flying, it's all over, oh god, we're all gonna die, and it's like the 1000th day of saying it. At least we keep it real here on this channel. You know, we'll be like, oh, this is pretty bad, but it's not gonna be that bad. So I'm glad to know that people really do appreciate that greatly, just like you, Remy. And I gotta thank you massively for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, a massive thanks to you so much once again. It's a wonderful thing to know that folks like you enjoy this channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But before we move on to the next one, I did see some of the foamers talking about foaming. And, you know, I was foaming today myself a little bit, because you know what I saw, folks? You know what I saw? I saw these, and I thought they were really cool. Saw some Union Pacific SD70s. But it's not the Ace versions. It's not the, oh, hang on. Let me just go get the normal SD70M. Because I actually
also
saw...
let me know when you're done with that, by the way, because I have another question I was going to address real quick on the curse topic real quick.
Yeah, sure, no problem, yeah. But I actually got to see these SD70Ms, which I generally thought that Union Pacific really didn't have a lot of these. And interestingly enough, they actually ended up having these as foreign power at the rail yard today, which was pretty neat. But it has like the teardrop windows. It doesn't have the large radiators at the back of the engine cowling, further at the back of the actual body. I was really interested in that. I'd never seen them before. And I also got to see a former Burlington Northern GP38 on a branch line service on another line. It was just sitting there, but you could tell it was a Burlington Northern GP38 because it looked just like this, and they just had a giant like black paint splotch over the Burlington Northern thing, and then nothing on it. But I was like, wow, that's really neat. I was like, that's I've never seen that before. Never seen a Burlington Northern at all ever since I was like a kid. And I think I saw like one down in Montgomery, Alabama, and it always stuck in my head because the green is really vibrant looking. But anyways, with that. Enough foaming. Thought I'd share that with you all because some of the foamers might appreciate seeing an SD70M, considering that they're getting a little bit rare because they're either being rebuilt into SD70 Aces or they're just being completely retired and sent to a scrapper. So kind of neat to see that, a little bit unique. Anyways, Matthew, what do we got on Kursk?
So someone in the live chat said, do you think the Kursk operation was a failure by the Ukrainians? It seems like it to me, but one y'all's take. And I'm going to address this one early because I thought it was a really good question and also wanted to explain it. So in my opinion, it depends on what you think the objective of the Kursk operation was. In my opinion, Kursk was never about truly invading Russia and trying to take Russia over. That was not the objective behind it. The objective was to go in and cause a distraction to force the Russians to withdraw troops from other areas of the front line in Ukrainian territory and put them back into mainland Russia to basically fight back for Russia's own territory that was being taken by the Ukrainians. So it was mainly a distraction. It was a way to take Russians off the front line, and that was solely it. So in my opinion, I don't think it was a failure. I think it was actually a success. And while the Ukrainians have been pushed out to a very large extent, they're still fighting there, by the way, but they have been pushed back quite a bit. It's not a failure in my view. And they're still fighting there. Now they're extending the fighting on down to Belgorod in that region as well. So they're still continuing the distraction op, and it's still going on. So I would consider it a success. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Matthew on that. It was a success. It was never supposed to be a major offensive. It was supposed to be a diversionary offensive the entire time, and it ended up succeeding in doing that quite well. So that would be my answer on top of that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to none other than it is going to be Old Warrior, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for that support as well. And being a long-time channel legend. Excuse me, goodness. And Old Warrior says, I got nothing tonight. Take one for that chat. And I'm seeing those super chats popping up.
Hey! And I hate to hear you have nothing tonight, but I do thank you for the support and the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to give one from the live chat in your honor, but I still thank you massively for supporting the channel and making it possible tonight. And also, taking this as a part of the super chat, I saw someone bring in something that I have to mention. Richard McNairn said, I like the EMD DDA-40X, and the DDA-40X is pretty neat. Matthew, have you ever seen it before?
No.
That thing was a chunky boy. Look at that thing.
That is something.
Man, 6,600 horsepower in this boy. Look at it, right back there. Freaking massive of a unit. It was literally like two normal locomotives like welded together into one, with the prime movers and all that sort of stuff. So really neat with that. But I'll be honest with you. I see what you're getting at here, Richard Minieren, with a really big electromotive diesel. But what I would have to counter with is the GTEL, because let me see. Here we go. The gas turbine electric locomotive. These were just absolutely nuts. And they used bunker sea oil, which is ship oil, which is just absolutely nuts to think that this thing was running on like marine engine fuel. And they stopped using them because it got too expensive to use that. Actually, I think at the beginning of their life, they used linseed oil, and then they moved on into using bunker sea oil later on. And then I think they also used another kind of fuel, which was practically just like goop, like it was like primordial goop. And then they stopped using that as well because then the plastics companies started to buy it up in mass to create plastics with. And so then they stopped using that as well. But these things are just absolute monsters. And on top of that, when the turbine is running a little bit too rich, this thing can actually create a legitimate fire tornado out of the top of it, which like it's like a real full-size fire tornado for a little bit. And also the exhaust from it is so hot that when this thing was sitting under a bridge in LA, it actually melted the bridge above it, so they banned this thing from operating in the LA area because it couldn't sit under an overpass for too long because it actually melted from the heat of its exhaust. This thing is just absolutely amazing. Like I like the DDA-40X, but this thing is just neat because it was a jet turbine powered locomotive, which is rare, like even for steam or diesel. But the fact that they actually use these things for a while is just really unique. So that would be my favorite, like, supersized diesel sort of a thing. But just a really cool one nevertheless. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and our next one goes to Plans for Sale, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Plans for Sale, for the support. And I'm not sure if that's your first ever support or not. I think it might be, but thank you very much for supporting the channel. And they said, take a chat question tonight. I love your coverage, only facts and no politics.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for enjoying the stream. Only facts, no politics. We try and do that the best we can, and I hope that we continue to do that 1,158 days in. Pretty fun to do it. We love doing it. We love to keep doing it. And I got to thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running and throwing in some kind words, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't have been able to make it a reality. We wouldn't be able to be here right now. Whoop, whoop. And so with that, huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
So the live chat goes to David Taplett. He said, why don't we ever hear about formal declarations of war anymore? I don't know, David. That's a good question, because I was saying that earlier. India and Pakistan are basically warring with each other right now. They're firing at each other's troops, and that's war, and nobody declares it anymore. Also, for example, the United States is now at war basically with the Houthis in Yemen, and we haven't officially declared war on them. So it's just not like the hip thing anymore to declare war. Kind of like it's not hip anymore to get married. It's just sort of hip just to just roll with it and not actually get married. So that's just the way it works. Like the formal stuff is going out the window, and it just sort of just goes the way it goes. It's kind of informal now. It's war, but it's not really war, I guess. Also, Putin didn't declare war either when he went into Ukraine. He called it a special military operation. Apparently, there's taboo against declaring war. But Enforcer, what say you?
The element of surprise, Matthew, is an important thing. And when you have to go through the action of speaking in Congress and debating about declaring war and then declaring war, that process takes such a long time that it actually completely negates the element of surprise to declaring war, meaning that you've lost the advantage by starting a war, and you're going to be on the defensive because the other side's probably going to preemptively attack you because they're going to see that you're going through the process of declaring war, and they're just going to declare war on you early and then go ahead and start hitting you first. So that's really the reason why it's not done anymore, is because communication travels too quickly to make it feasible to go through the process of declaring war. So instead, we just give, what is it called, Matthew? It's like executive authority to be able to conduct military actions, pretty much declaring war without an official declaration of war. So that way we can still have the element of surprise and achieve our advantages without putting ourselves at a severe disadvantage by having the Congress sit around for days going through the official process to declare war.
Yeah, the war power is by the president. It gives them the power to deploy troops. That's for the United States only, by the way. It's not for every country. It's just for the United States. It gives them the power to deploy troops to deal with a problem that requires military action. But the catch, though, is that's only supposed to be a way to basically get the ball rolling. But Congress has to declare war at some point. The problem is, though, for the last few wars we've been involved in, we haven't officially declared it at any point. It's just the ball got rolling with the war power, so the president has the right to deploy troops under, but they never actually formalized it. They just kept going without a declaration of war. That's been the last couple of skirmishes we've been in.
I'll be honest with you, I find it to be highly improper. I believe that if we wanted the element of surprise, we should go and attack a country, but within days of doing that and starting that war, we should be issuing an official declaration of war through the Congress to legitimize the conflict.
Yeah, I think the reason why countries don't want to declare any war anymore, now that I think about it, is because if you declare war, that means you either have to admit to winning or losing it, because you're in a war and there will be a winner and a loser. If you never declare war, then technically there's no winning or losing because a war never technically existed. So you get to avoid accountability to some extent by not declaring it. And also you get to avoid all the formalities of it. So it might be a dodging accountability issue. That might be part of it.
Yeah, kind of like how the British called the Malayan Civil War the Malayan Crisis for insurance reasons, because the insurance companies wouldn't pay out for British companies' damages in Malaysia if it was an act of war. They would only pay out in acts of, like vandalism and stuff, so they called it an emergency instead of a civil war. So that way the insurance companies would be forced to pay out to the British companies that were getting seriously damaged in Malaysia at the time. That was so stupid, man. You can actually pull it, we can actually pull it up, the Malayan emergency, or the Malayan crisis, I think it was called. It was the crisis, yeah. It was the crisis. And it was a freaking civil war, dude, like a legitimate civil war. And they just called it an emergency or a crisis for the insurance reasons. No joke.
Well, that's something else right there. That sounds like insurance fraud.
Yeah, look at this, dude. Literally, it says it here. Like, it actually says it here on Wikipedia, too. The term emergency was used by the British to characterize the conflict in order to avoid referring to it as war, because London-based insurers would not pay out in instances of civil wars.
Yeah, it's just so goofy.
Yeah, that was
also
so goofy.
for another example, Putin refusing to call the war in Ukraine a war, and he calls it a special military operation. It's like, well, it's like the emphasis on that. It's like it's solely to put the wool over the eyes of the Russian civilians. And surely it's like in my head, I'm thinking surely the Russian civilians aren't that abstract or goofy to fall for that stupid propaganda. But apparently some of them are, or either they're scared to speak up and say anything different. He's just like, a special military operation. It's like, it's still a war. And Putin went through a ton of trouble to make sure he painted it as a special military operation, an SMO. It's like, I don't even understand like the point of going through all that effort to paint it as such when it's clearly just a war. Like that goes to show you how bad these leaders want to avoid accountability when starting wars like that. And in the United States, they don't want to say they declared war, partially because it looks bad for the next political campaign. They're like, the other opponent's going to say, hey, look, man, you got us in wars. But it's like, if you don't declare war, it's like, well, I didn't really get us in a war. It's just dealing with a special military operation. It's just word games. It's just foolishness, really.
Man, I wonder how that would work, man. Like, for that one guy, I forgot what his name was, but he was an actor that didn't pay his taxes. Or that, better yet, that guy we knew on Twitter, Matthew, who, like, bragged about not paying taxes. It's like, when they get, like, held accountable by that with the IRS, do they go, I didn't conduct tax evasion. I conducted a special fund saving operation. It's like, what? Do they get away with that? Like, it's like, no. It's like, it's tax fraud or it's tax evasion. It's like, same thing with a war. It's like, you can call it a special military operation. It's still a war.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. It's just word games, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. But I think we hit that one dead on the nail, Matthew. Dead on the nail.
Indeed, I would say so. Also, someone said, I didn't start any wars. And explodes people with drones for 4 years. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess in that instance, is it a war, or are you just, politically assassinating people? I don't really know. It's just kind of tricky. Like the Middle East is always a little bit muddly when it comes to things like that. Like
Man,
it's just assassinations, or is it just I don't know. I even really knew who was conducting it. At the time.
I also like this one. This is just where it gets so confusing. I never started any wars, and no wars started under my administration. If I remember correctly, he was the one who sent U.S. forces into Syria in the thousands to crush ISIS, if I remember that correctly. So I could technically consider that to be a war. Like, I considered it to be a war, because it's pretty much the same thing that the U.S. did to deal with the Berber pirates back at the beginning of our history, was to just send expeditionary forces to go crush some group in some region of North Africa or the Middle East. And it happened to be ISIS that time. But, like, to me, technically, that kind of breaks the whole thing if I didn't enter America into a new war. Because it's like we actually went into the Middle East and had to put more forces into the area to crush ISIS under that administration, technically, in a sense, going into a war. So, like, that's... But honestly, though, it's like, is that really a bad thing? Like, in the defense of in the defense of the orange guy, was that really a bad thing? Like, no. It's like, ISIS was a terrible group, hell bent on conducting acts of terror in the United States. It's like, it's not a bad thing to say that, we got involved in a war and we crushed them. I mean, it was a good war for a good cause against a bad group of people, and we won. So it's like, honestly, that's not even a bad thing to say. Like, yeah, I got us involved in a war, and we crushed them and we won. And then there was hardly any, there were no terror attacks from that point forward conducted by them in the United States, because they ceased to exist. It's like I don't know what the thing is these days about people acting like they cannot get us in wars, or wars are just bad altogether. It's like, there are good wars. That was a great war to deal with ISIS right there, and it ended up turning out successful. It's like, that was a great one. Like, why shy away from it? That was the reality of it.
And also, by the way, like, I see someone was criticizing what I was saying a moment ago about the drone strikes. The drone strikes are productive, because they're not taking out like just any person in the Middle East. They're taking out really horrific terrorist leaders that conduct acts of terror around the world, not just on the United States, but on our partner countries. So even though it's not declaring a war, I don't really view that as necessarily like sending the military in. That's more of like operatives going in to conduct assassinations on behalf of the Western world. That's what that is. Also, if we send in, like, for example, a small contingent or a small unit of troops into Syria to assist in taking out ISIS, that's just assisting the destruction of a terror group. You don't have to start a war to do that. You can simply send in a small team of people to facilitate it. And of course, the intelligence agencies do that. And it's not necessarily always the military. It's contractors, it's mercenaries. And we do hire private military organizations to pull that off as well. And that avoids the whole declaration of war thing. It avoids the war powers thing. It avoids all that if you just sidestep it with the intelligence agencies and you send in people in small numbers, not large numbers like an army, but just small numbers to go deal with stuff. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's a little bit loose. It's a little bit wild and loose, but you have to deal with it some way, and you get to avoid all that other crap that comes with it.
Honestly, man, I like a hot take. I think we should have sent the Pinkertons to go deal with ISIS, dude. Imagine that. It's like, wait, you don't know about the Pinkertons?
No, I know about the Pinkertons. I was like, you want to send the labor union people over?
Dude, if they can union bust, bro, they can break up a terrorist group, bro. They would be having people in the ISIS meetings, dude. The ISIS guys would be like, we are going to crush the West. And then there'd be like a guy who's like pretending to be a scab. He'd be like, honestly, I kind of like the West. And they'd be like, who are you? It's like, freaking Pinkerton in there with them. Dude, honestly, man, I think the Pinkertons could have gone in there and taken care of ISIS by tearing them apart from the inside out, and then just started taking care of the troublemakers from that point on anyways, like they do with unions. Like, honestly, man, that would have been a pretty funny thing to watch, man, how the Pinkertons would have taken care of ISIS.
I tell you what, the Pinkertons, they were like on par with Blackwater or something.
Honestly, though, you got to admit, man, like think like honestly, what they did historically, union busting, was absolutely terrible. But think about those tactics being used instead of on union busting on a terrorist organization. Imagine how that would turn out. That probably would, dude. Honestly, man, that would be grounds for a comedy movie, nearly, like with how goofy some of the tactics would get.
Yeah, honestly, it probably wouldn't be a comedy. It'd probably be a tragedy for us all over with. I don't think the Pinkertons are cut out for combat.
Dude, I think the Pinkertons are cut out for that kind of business. Like honestly, it's like I think we should send them in and see what happens. But and also, Slogan, I said, bro, the Pinkertons were so corrupt. Yeah, but that's the funny thing about sending them over there to deal with ISIS. Like, imagine what kind of silly shenanigans they would get involved in to take care of ISIS. It would be absolutely ludicrous, honestly. But anyways, with that, it is nowadays though they're busy like getting sent around. I think by like Games Workshop or whatever, the people who run Warhammer 40K, getting like people who got gotcha cards or something early. Did you hear about that, Matthew? Like someone got the Pinkertons. So a card company, I think it was like Games Workshop, I don't know, I don't think it was them, allegedly they sent out a group of cards, like a deck of cards or something, to some guy early because it was on pre-order, and then they accidentally sent it to some guy, and he made a review of it on YouTube. So they hired the Pinkertons to go to his house and get the deck of cards back from him.
The Pinkertons to go get the deck of cards. That's honestly, that sounds insane.
Yeah, so many regrets. I think he got it right. I think it was like a Magic the Gathering deck of cards or something like that. Honestly, something that you wouldn't think the Pinkertons would be called in for. But nevertheless, they called up the Pinkertons to go get the cards back, and they got the cards back by intimidating the guy that badly. It's like, bro, it's like, is that what the Pinkertons have stooped down to? Back in the day, they used to be hired by people like Carnegie to go like shoot a couple of steelworkers. It's like nowadays they're going around like hassling people to get some deck of cards back. It's like, man, how far they've fallen. You know, they went from doing.
I don't know about that, but they pay good. Like, I don't know if you've seen those Pinkerton job openings, but man, they paid swell. Like, honestly, they have some good salaries.
I haven't actually looked. How much do they get paid?
I saw a couple of job openings that were above the 6 figures.
Sheesh! Really? Like, what kind of jobs are those?
I can't remember for certain. There was I think there was an intel position opening, like doing intelligence, like open source intel or something on people. And they have like intel positions, I believe, if I remember correctly. And they're paying pretty swell. I think they were paying over 6 figures.
Man,
so you might want to become a Pinkerton.
I gotta tell you, man, I'm really looking at this baseball cap here with the Pinkertons on the top of it. I'm thinking about putting that on. Like, that's actually some pretty wild pay right there. Maybe it pays to be like the labor union bad guy, you know? Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. All jokes aside, so what do we got, Matthew?
And our next one goes to Sligoy the Sauce, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Sligoy, for that support. And they said, are we not going to talk about the moron driving the gas truck toward the fire? No, I saw that, by the way. That was actually in my thumbnail, actually, the gas truck going toward the fire. I don't know. I don't understand the logic. I guess he was thinking, well, if I'm going to go because I'm too close to it anyway. I don't know. But driving a gas truck toward a fire is probably not smart. But yeah, I saw it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Driving a gas truck towards a fire is unwise. And it really was. I didn't really pick up on that when we were playing the video because I was like more focused on the guy's camera getting blown out of his hands. But yeah, that was actually a pretty stupid move. Also, by the way, this is Rajaport, which is where the explosion happened, which is still a part of Bandar Abbas, but it wasn't the naval wharf down here. And I was also looking at this earlier. I was like, whoa, they're still using break bulk ships for their cargo and like dry bulk ships. Like, man, sad. I didn't know that they had Reggie down here running the whole cargo like container operation. So now we know. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next super chat is going to go to none other than Wantan 8888, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Wantan, for that support, or Wantan. And they said to turn on members, LSA.
And I thank you so much for the support, Wanton. Man, they want me for wantonness.
Oh man, I remember that so much, man.
Man.
That was when I knew, okay, this guy's cooked.
I got my lawyer on the case, never paid him, he never represented him. It's like, oh, come on now, come on. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support. And I gotta say, can you reread that question again, Matthew? Because I lost my train of thought because of us laughing at the joke, honestly.
I said turn on members, LSA.
We're never doing that. We'll never turn on the
come
members.
on.
Like that's like my kind of like Costco hot dog. Like it's got to be like $1.99 thing. Like the memberships look tacky to me. Like I hate how it harasses people when you click on a channel with memberships to get a membership. I absolutely hate that. I would rather have supporting the channel be the last thing on people's minds, and they're just enjoying the channel. They enjoy it so much that they want to support it, instead of making them feel like they're forced to support it and then enjoying it comes second. That's kind of how I look at it. But I see a lot of people in the chat are really big into the idea of memberships. I don't know, people. I just can't do it. I feel like the Enforcer channel would change a lot if we put memberships on, because then like the live chat gets stratified and you have like platinum gold member talking down to bronze member and everything, you know, like it always happens. I don't know.
I just wouldn't rule it out. Like I say don't do it right now because there's no need, but I just wouldn't rule it out.
We'll consider it, but you know, like, but we won't do it for now. But I do thank you for the support and throwing in the suggestion. And I thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and make it possible. And with that, now I see the people coming in, the people on my side saying no memberships. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, someone said no difference between Patreon and membership, IMO. They're pretty similar, but there's a little bit of a difference, though. The YouTube memberships allow people to have like different ranks in the live chat, which I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but we could fix that where there were no ranks. I think there's a way to set the settings to where people aren't, you know, like ranking higher than other people and stuff like that. It's not like we're trying to keep everybody equal or something, but we don't want people like the Enforcer said talking down. Like, yeah, we're not trying to create the communist rank, but you can keep people where it's not where people are talking down to one another. But well, at least to not rule it out. We'll have to think about it. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to D.E. Bowen, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, D.E., for that support. And they said, keep up the good work.
Hey, thank you so much for support. We will keep up the good work thanks to your support. So a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And let's see here. Oh, let me move on to the next one. We're going to start running late if I keep on sidetracking. But this one goes to Howard Mendelson, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Howard, for that support as well, and always supporting the channel. And Howard said, to those who say it's war, what war? It's religious enmity. And this is just two armies taking pot shots and killing people.
Well, I thank you for the support, but it's still a war. Like it's still a war. I do thank you for the support, though, and helping this channel to keep it running. But when people are shooting each other and killing each other from one nation to another, that's technically a war for the most part. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Butchie, as well for that support. And it's good to see you once again. Big shout from UK. And they said, will Russia be holding a Victory Day parade this year? And those donkeys and scooters are really going to have to suffer on those cobbles in the square, Red Square. And I love you guys. And by far the best news channel out there in LSA.
And thank you for the kind words. And I think they are going to have a May 9th parade this year, but it's going to be really, really bad. That's what I'm thinking, because it's getting worse every single year. Lenin. And it's not getting better. So I would have to say, yes, they're going to have one, but it's going to be absolutely terrible. What's actually crazy, though, is that it's April 26th. I haven't heard squat about a May 9th parade yet so far. So I don't know if it's just in the works quite. Let me go pull that up. May 9th parade 2025. What do we get when we put this in? So yeah, they are going to be having actually they had the rehearsal yesterday. Let me go take a look at it. Oh, this was in
Be careful about playing that, by the way. Be careful.
Oh, I'm not showing it here, man. I'm looking at it in St. Petersburg. Honestly, it looks like the same one they had last year in St. Petersburg. And I don't know if they're going to have one here, what they're going to have in Red Square. But we will find out this year. Nevertheless, though, I do thank you for supporting helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nova Stardust, who puts in a 20. And big shout to Nova Stardust for that support as well. And they said, test, LSA.
And the test came through, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, thank you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $15 super chat from I2 4U, and also a $10 super chat from John Bernard, and a $10 super chat from Tom Exman. And huge shout to John, Tom, and I2 for that support. And they said they are testing, and also take a live chat.
And I thank all three of y'all for testing, and it appears that the tests went through. Good to hear, and I got to thank y'all for the support as well. And we will make sure to get a live chat, and all three of y'all's on us. And so what do we got, Matthew?
So this one goes to Charles from the live chat. And they said, didn't they also, meaning India, didn't India also open the valves to the dams to flood some of the regions too?
I heard that today. I didn't really get any video or picture evidence of it, at least to show on the stream, and I didn't personally see it myself. But I did hear that they did that today, so I would say yes. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. And thank you to all three of y'all once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Con LSA, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Con, for that support. And they said, YouTube censored the comments so badly, it's almost impossible to say anything without any profanity or vulgarity. A lot of commonly used words are now no longer accepted when trying to post. And I've heard that, Con, from actually several people recently. I'm not sure if YouTube has cracked down on what they're censoring in the super chats, and it's kind of weird they would censor it all, considering that you can simply type in the live chat. But whatever the case is, I wish they would undo that, because it kind of restricts people from super chatting. So you should be able to say what you want in your super chat. So I'm not sure if they've changed the rules or what, but I've noticed a lot of people saying that. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I've heard some downright horrendous, down bad things in the live chat, and for some reason then they don't allow it in the super chat. Really kind of confusing. But still, I do thank you for the support, and I hate to hear that, Con. But nevertheless, I do thank everyone for supporting the channel and helping you keep on running, because whether people are able to speak their mind or not, thanks to YouTube, y'all still are helping this channel to keep on rolling, and we thank y'all massively for that. And so a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Amex10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Amex10 Speedy Bang Bang, for that support. They said Anzac Day services hit a bit different this year, continuing the trend that the present day is just as important as our past, and emphasizing global unity support within armed forces around the world.
And I thank you so much for the support. And it really is an important thing to remember what went on back then and what's going on now, and the similarities between the two, because the similarities are getting stronger with each and every single passing day. But I do thank you so much once again, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running all the way down there from the land of the Anzacs, or more so New Zealand in your case. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the you know what, Matthew? I feel like Auckland's the most Seattle-looking place outside of Seattle. Let's take a look. Huh. Doesn't really look like Seattle.
No, it doesn't really look like Seattle at all, really.
Doesn't look like Seattle at all. Let's take a look at the pictures here that they have curated. Oh, that's actually not that bad. That's actually pretty nice. Oh, look at that. They like to show that bus right there. They like to show these cruise ships. These cruise ships. Not really a lot of mountains around here. I was expecting mountains. Actually, this place doesn't look like Seattle at all. What the hell was I talking about? Anyways, thank you once
It
again.
looks like Palm Beach.
No, it doesn't look like. Don't say that about this place. Like, don't insult them. Auckland looks fine. It looks great. West Palm Beach was, it was rough.
No, West Palm Beach, the downtown was nice. It was just when you went like 100 feet outside the downtown, it wasn't so nice anymore.
Let me show you all the dichotomy of the Palm Beaches. So we have Palm Beach A, Exhibit A, which is right about here. This is Palm Beach Exhibit A, and then this is Palm Beach Exhibit B. Very big differences.
Yeah, it's a big disparity, I will say. And also, but these aren't cheap still, like over here.
Yeah.
These are not cheap. It looks like it might be cheap, but it's not. It's actually very, very expensive.
It's actually insanely expensive. And so you have to go all the way out here. You have to take Shuddy to the swamp to actually like find like where it would be kind of affordable. And then this is what it looks like, and it's like dirt roads and stuff. Actually, this doesn't.
I can foresee the anacondas like going through here and stuff like that, or the gators.
Man, I showed Shorty my mamba. it's like a real
What?
snake. It's like a real snake. That's
Oh.
like the joke, dude. Like, you know, like laugh, please laugh, please laugh. But also here's the wealth disparities are massive here, man. It literally gets exponentially worse the further in you go towards the swamp.
Yeah, honestly, man. Like I tell you, I had some like high hopes for this place. Like I just really I did not like it after I saw it in person. I was like, wow, I really don't like here. I actually turned out to really like the Seattle like mountain area. Like that was actually very nice. I didn't care for downtown Seattle, but West Palm Beach was kind of shocking. I don't like places where it's like super nice in one small little area, and then it looks bad everywhere else. I don't really like that.
I would rather have it like as if I had a choice in between it being insanely nice in a small area, but really bad everywhere else, and it being pretty okay across the board, or really nice. Well, you actually don't get any other options rather than those two. I would pick it being pretty decent across the board, because then you actually have a lot of additional places to go, rather than going to this one like small several square block area, and then everything else looks really bad, because then you kind of run out of options of places to go pretty quickly.
And also, unless you're a millionaire, you can't even live in that nice little square block area, unless you're like a like tens of millionaire or something like that. So you had to be ultra wealthy to even live in that little spot. So it's like I'd rather just live somewhere like normal compared to that.
Yeah, that's what I would do, man. Like exactly. Like bro. Where do you get view? Where do you get view other than this? Like
Alpental.
bro, you get it at Alpental, bro. Alpental, up here where we almost got eaten by tigers, lions, and bears. Oh my, apparently.
Yeah, I was told after the fact, but somebody emailed me on the email I read it today, and he said, "Hey guys, be careful going up there. There's like bears and like deadly animals up there." It's like, oh, okay. It's like honestly, I really didn't think about that when I was like getting out of the car up there, but I was like, I guess that makes sense because it's pretty remote out there actually. So I guess there would be some bears right there.
Baker's Snoqualmie National Forest. Are there bears?
We were like hopefully unprepared, like going there. Like we didn't have a jacket, we were wearing shorts, and we also didn't have any like firearms or anything like that to like protect ourselves from the bears.
Oh my god, there was 10 to 20 grizzly bears in there somewhere. Dude, the dangerous, most deadly bears in America, there's 20 of them somewhere in that park.
Yeah, I believe the person when they said it. I was like, yeah, you have a good point. Like, honestly, we just really walked into Seattle like two dumb butts really walking up there. But it was nice. The trip turned out good, but it was kind of like goofy at the same time.
Oh my goodness, dude. Actually, that's like scary now thinking about it, dude, because grizzly bears are the freaking most dangerous bears in America. Like outside of polar bears, no one ever runs into those. So, oh my god, dude, we could have died. Dude, me walking like several hundred feet away from the car, man, was honestly like stepping in the middle of a minefield and praying that one didn't show up. Because if one had shown up and I was that far away from that car, dude, I probably would have been a bear's food that day.
I would have just rammed it with that car. Honestly, man, that Malibu was like such junk. It would have been probably good for a car rammer, to be honest with you, that thing. I will say this. The Malibu, like the Chevy Malibu, I'm not bashing it. If you have a Chevy Malibu, like good for you. But out of all the cars I've driven like Toyotas, I've driven all kinds of stuff, and pretty much every car there is, from like the highest level car to the lowest level car. I've had a Volkswagen, I've had all kinds of cars, a little like Volkswagen Jetta. But that Malibu just sucked. Like, I didn't like it. The turning radius was bad on it. It was smooth on the interstate, but it was just like the turning radius was so bad. It turned like shorter than a truck. I'm like, how can a car have a turning radius that's less than a pickup truck? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, it was an interesting car. It was fine to sit in though, but apparently not nice to drive. But dude, that actually is scary, man. There was freaking 20 of them in that forest, dude. We could have freaking died out there. We could have died out there. And they said there was black bears too, but black bears are really nothing to worry about because they're usually skittish and small and scared. But have y'all seen how big grizzly bears get? Like, grizzly bears are terrifying bears. Like, let me go pull them up. They're called grizzly for a reason. Let me go get them. Grizzly bear size. There we go. Here we go. That is a grizzly bear next to a full-grown man.
Holy crap, somebody stood next to one?
I think that's like a taxidermy one.
Oh, I was about to say, I was more impressed with the guy standing right next to it, looking like, oh, that's an interesting piece of food.
But look at that, dude, look at that thing. That thing is a monster.
What the hell is that doing, twerking on the cabin?
Bro, it's Shorty busting it down.
It bears down bad.
Bro, oh my god, bro. Dude, I couldn't be scared of that one. That one's going to die from being a diabetic here before long with that kind of weight. But goodness gracious, dude. This guy's petting a real one. Like, this guy's got a death wish. I just would never mess with a grizzly bear, man. I'd be terrified of the grizzly bears.
Yeah, I'd be terrified of them too. I don't like them. I like them if they were friendly. I would be friendly. These things stink like hell, though. I've heard like they really, really stink.
Yeah, they do. They're cute looking though, but I never get near one ever in my life. You know, another animal that is like deceivingly cute looking, but they're actually dangerous is buffalo. And I spelled that so wrong, I didn't even know what I was trying to type. Buffalo, like the American bison. Those things are actually pretty dangerous.
Oh yeah, they're dangerous as hell, and all the tourists like will get out of their cars like at Yellowstone and stuff where they're at, and they'll go walking up toward them like, "Can I pet it?" It's like, are you stupid? And then we literally saw it when we went to Yellowstone, or yeah, it was Yellowstone. We saw like some tourists getting out of the car and walking toward it, and the park ranger had to like drive over with his truck and tell the people to get back in their cars. I'm like, are the people that goofy to run up to a wild animal and like try to pet it? It's like, come on now. It's like, I don't want nothing bad to happen to them. It's like you kind of got what's coming to you if you do something stupid like that.
Dude, some people are so stupid, man. They actually think animals are like from Disney movies where they're all like sweet and nice. It's like, this bison will trample you to death in seconds. Like, this thing weighs about the weight of a small car. It's like, I would never get near one of these things. I mean, hell, honestly, man, you could shoot that thing if you wanted to like defend yourself from it. You could shoot that thing straight in the middle of its eyes, and the skull is so thick. I've actually heard that a decent amount of calibers just bounce right off.
That's yeah, that's sketchy, man. I just wouldn't get anywhere near a wild animal like this. Like, the common sense tells you, like, don't mess with it. It's wild. It's not domesticated, so don't go near it.
Now, man, you know a crazy story back in the day about, you know, like how the bisons became almost extinct is that after they built the railroads through the West, dude, they'd have some guys, man, just sit up on the front of a cow catcher on a locomotive, and as they went through the prairie, they just sit up there with lever action repeaters and they just start blasting them. Like, they just wipe them out. Like, honestly, it's like kind of crazy when you think about it. Like there's a like some people say that the reason why they did that was to deprive the Native Americans of their primary food source, which was part of the reason, but also one of the other reasons is that bisons are pretty damn stubborn. And at the weight and size that locomotives were of the day, these things would get on the tracks, and if a locomotive ran into one of these things, it actually would derail the locomotive and cause a crash. So they wanted to get rid of them for the general reason that, one, they wanted to deprive the Native Americans of a food source. Two, they wanted to stop having the trains derailed by these fat-ass things sitting on the tracks. And three, I don't know what the other thing was. People liked hunting them for sport, and there was like millions of them back then, so they were just wiping them out left and right. But still,
yeah, it's basically a bull though. Like, you know how dangerous bulls are. Everybody knows don't go near a bull like in a pen and stuff like that. These things are basically just fluffy bulls, basically.
Let me see if I can get you a size difference between the bison and a cow, because they're like, here you go. That's your average cow. near to Polish bison, which are close in size to an American bison. So that's your actual comparison. Nowhere close to being a bull. They are bigger than a bull.
Yeah, that's just dumb to go near it. They were massive in real life.
Yeah, they're terrifying. They're bigger than a car, really. Like, even those jacked up, like, pickups, that, like, some Reds have, like, even bigger than those, like in height. They're terrifying animals. And the sound they make when they walk around, especially when they start galloping, like, they actually shake the ground if you're near enough to them. Like, just, like, beasts of an animal.
A beefalo? Do you see that Wikipedia article right there? It's like that, look, beefalo.
Yeah, it's a crossbreed between a bison and a cow.
Click on, what the hell's wrong with that one down there below it? Do you see that picture of that first one?
Moo. Like, bro, what is up with it?
Click that. Man, what the hell's wrong with that one?
Bro, dude, this one, when it goes, it doesn't do that. It goes,
Honestly, a beefalo. I've never even heard of that, like, ever. I didn't even know what the hell that was.
I never heard of that either. That's new to me. But man, that's interesting here. But man, look at these bison. Dude, honestly, man, they are really cool looking, and I would like to pet them, but I'm never going to get to petting them, man, because I don't want to die, Like, I don't want one to get angry and then flip me up in the air and then trample me after I fall on the ground. I'm good. I'm good. I'll just pass on that. But anyways, it is time for us to get on to the rest. Oh, man, is that a bison foal? That's cute.
Well, that foal.
Look at that foal. Look at that foe. Man, in the bison...
Man, I pity the foe.
Man, I pity the foe that comes up on my kids. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Ford Tech 101, who puts in a $20 donation and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Ford Tech, for that support. Also, they are flying Alaskan. They are not flying Delta. They're not flying American. They're flying Alaskan. I've never flown on the airline. We did see a ton of them, though, in Seattle. That seems to be a very big airport for them. And maybe one day we'll fly Alaskan, maybe, to go check out the place. But thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you for the support. And actually, Matthew, SeaTac is I think, Alaskans, if I remember correctly, they're Fortress Airport, which means, they pretty much get most of the traffic coming through that airport. Really
okay.
Cool.
So like their base.
Yeah, pretty much like if you want to call it like their hub. Although like this is their only hub. Some other companies like American and Delta have several hubs that they have majority control in, but Alaska's only hub is SeaTac. So that's a pretty neat thing. But beyond that, maybe one day we will fly that airline. But I do thank you for the support nevertheless and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to none other than Marion Deemer, a longtime channel legend, of course. And thank you very much, Marion, for always supporting the channel bigly all the time and putting in that $20 support tonight. And we do sincerely appreciate it very much. And I don't think there was a comment. There was no comment. It was just a straight up orange super chat. And we appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you so much for the support, Marion Deemer, and helping this channel to keep it running because you are a legend that has been
Pizza
around.
money. They said pizza money.
Hey, pizza money. We love it. We love it. We actually had pizza yesterday and today because we are able to make a pizza last long enough to have like several meals off of them. So I thank you massively for the support because we're going to put that towards more pizza as soon as humanly possible. So a big thanks to you so much once again. And we are about to be moving on to the next one. Also, I saw someone say, I wouldn't want to fly Virgin Airlines. Like, you know what's crazy about Virgin Airlines is that Richard Branson started it. Do you hear the story about how he started his airline, Matthew?
He got pissed off and started his own airline?
No. He wanted to go down to somewhere, to like the Bahamas or something on a trip, because he was like a rich kid who just, did that kind of stuff. Like, no joke. So he couldn't get a private jet to charter him or something. Well, no, he couldn't get an airline to charter him. So he bought out a private jet and then he said, you know something? I've got plenty of free seats on this jet. So he sat in the terminal with a sign and told people like a ticket, like a price on his sign to fly on his private jet to the Bahamas. So he filled up the plane that he was renting and then he flew it to the Bahamas and made money off of it. He actually made a profit off of it. So that's how he started his airline. And you know what's crazy about that, Matthew, is that Virgin Airlines was one of the big lobbyists in the U.S. government that made that very thing illegal for people to do.
Oh, well, that's goofy. Honestly, though, it sound like a good businessman, like, to do that. Like, I don't think other people would have
But
done that if they were rich. But at the same time, though, why do you call it Virgin Airlines? Like, I've never understood the naming.
I never understood it either, dude. But honestly, man, I find that really scummy, man. It's like, you kind of like climb up the ladder and then you pull up the ladder and use it to beat people who are trying to get up there too. It's like that was really jacked up. Like it's like stuff people used to do back then, man, to be successful has literally been legislated out of existence by those very people. Like they've lobbied and tried to get other people to make sure that no one can compete with them because they have an advantage that no one else was ever able to have.
Yeah, that's just so goofy. I'm still trying to figure out why he called it Virgin Airlines, though. That's what I'm trying to figure
Let
out.
me go pull that up. Why did he call? I'm not going to pull it up on the main screen. Why did he call it Virgin Airlines? And I'm sure they'll know he is Richard Branson. So, let's see. So the name Virgin arose in 1970 when Richard Branson and Nick Powell formed a record shop, first as mail order and in 1971 with a physical store. They considered themselves virgins in business, and Branson had described the V in the logo as an expressive tick representing the Virgin seal of approval. So that's the explanation. Really kind of a goofy one, honestly. But anyways,
It sounds like a real like washed down version of probably like an insider joke, like a dirty joke
yeah.
or something. I'll be honest, every time I've heard it, I've always thought, I think there's more to this than people know or something that might be a little bit too dirty for the public's knowledge or something that they just kind of just kept to themselves. I'm like, the naming is just a little bit odd to me.
Yeah, it's a little odd. I'll have to agree. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Darren Quinn, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, Darren, as well, for that $10 support. He said, how many dams has China built stopping water going to both Pakistan and India? And take a good look.
Several of them, actually. And I would agree that's not a right thing to do for with the Chinese either. But still, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bill Blake, who puts in a 10. And big shout out to Bill for that $10 support. He said, what about let's see. Oh, he meant to say, what are the goals of Pakistan and India? And are they going to war until they both have had enough?
So the goal of Pakistan and India wants to punish the Pakistanis for the Polygram massacre. And at this point, the Pakistanis are going to have to fight the war to try and get access to their water, which is being held in the mountains right now. So that's really the objectives of both sides at this moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. I think he wants to give her support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Butchie777 yet again, who puts in a 10 this time. And thank you very much, Butchie, for that second support of the night and helping to keep the channel running. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because while you didn't throw in a comment, you're making this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And we got a $10 support from Joe O. And thank you very much, Joe, for that support. Joe says, thanks for the valuable updates and coverage.
And thank you for enjoying the valuable updates and coverage and supporting it and helping us to keep this thing going and making it possible. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Quantum Fighter, who puts in a 10 as well. And big shout out to Quantum Fighter for that support. They said, I wish I could tell you where I've been, but got to ride a CV9120, got to hold on the new Sacco service rifles. I know SE working good on drone CBMT. Even got to meet a general, LLT LSA.
Wow, that's really cool, Quantum Fighter. I wish I could ride in a CV9120. Those things are cool. And I thank you for support and sharing that with us. But I wish you could tell us more, but sadly, we'll just have to leave it at that because we don't want folks to get in trouble. But still, a huge thanks to you once again. Thank you for sharing that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Boy, who puts in a $7 donation, and thank you very much for that support as well. They said China pays Putin and Ayatollah's pets to pester U.S. China pays Putin and Ayatollah's pets to pester U.S.
And since you said that twice, it has to be right. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one also goes to Boy, who puts in another $6 super chat. And thank you very much as well for that second support. They said, in Iran, I ran so far away, I couldn't get away. Flock of seagulls, Chinese perchlorate shipment just landed at Iran port.
Man, I'm so real. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And that sounds like it was dead on the nail with the news we covered today. And I thank you for sharing that with us once more. And so a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the next one. The next one, I say.
And our next one goes to Merk, spelled M-E-R-K, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Merk, for that support. And of course, thank you very much for helping keep the channel running, and also condolences to the other guy's channel. But Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much for supporting and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to tell you something, folks. Hot Dog Man came back. It was like a miracle. He was able to cover a domestic political topic, and he got 30,000 views on it. It was a great thing for him. It's a record viewing stream. He's never had his stream go that much better before. And people, they came flooding in droves. He got 300 new subscribers, an absolute record for him. He's never seen that kind of growth. So he's decided not to quit YouTube anymore, and he's going to keep going with it for at least as long as he can keep those people around. Soon they're all going to run away after they figure out how shitty of a person he is. But nevertheless, he officially did not quit yet. He's still hanging on by just a little thread. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, hey, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to John Watts, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, John, as well, for that support. He said, keep up your reporting.
And we will. And thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And we're on to the next one.
And we also got a 5 from Barry Woodward, who said Super Chat is working in LSA.
An LSA, and thank you so much, Barry Woodward. Everyone was checking, and it was working, actually, tonight for many people. And so, a huge thanks to you once again. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Dade Carnes, also known as Raid, who puts in a 5. And he said, LSA, and I'm glad Enforcer Matt is feeling better. And thank you for that, Dade. Honestly, I had a horrific migraine headache last night, like really bad. I wasn't hardly able to sleep last night at all, and I was suffering tremendously last night. I was suffering this morning too, but I was able to make it through the pain and make the video this morning. I really was not feeling in a mood to make the video, but I did it anyway because the news was so big I couldn't just not make a video. Because I was like, oh dang, if I don't make a video on this, I feel like we're not really fulfilling our duty to report it on the channel, because a lot of people rely on that. So I did it anyway. So thankfully it turned out good, and a lot of people liked it and didn't notice I wasn't feeling too hot. But tonight, though, I'm feeling much better. Like, I'm actually feeling good tonight, and hopefully it stays that way, because migraines suck really bad. Medicine won't do anything for it, and pretty much nothing you do will fix it. It's just pain galore. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for the support. I was trying to keep it running. I thank you for the kind words to Matthew there, because Matthew does appreciate it, and it's good to know that he was here with us tonight. Because he was in bad shape last night, folks. He was in bad shape. He came out this morning. He was bleeding out of his nose and his eyes and his ears and wherever, and he was in pain, serious pain. But he made that video, and ended up being a number 1 out of 10, and I was very proud of him for that. Not proud of him for bleeding, but proud of him for making that video. I like heroes that don't bleed, and so I'm just kidding, by the way. But still, I hope that does address it well. Thank you for the kind words, though, to Matthew. He does appreciate those greatly. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Dumb Wabbit, who puts in a 5. And this is our Dumb Wabbit. They said, I just want to say how much I love the intro to the stream. And thanks, Enforcer. I don't have a question, so please take a live chat question.
And thank you so much for your support, and thank you for the kind words, and thank you for enjoying that intro. Some people don't like it. Some people say it's too long, and to that I always say I spent 10 grand on it. It can't be too long. It's just like at this point, I would cut down the intro if I hadn't literally sank money into making the whole thing custom made. It's like, now it's got to play the whole thing through, because it's good in my opinion. It's great in my opinion. I'm biased because, I hired the composer and the orchestra, and it's the same orchestra that did the Squid Game soundtrack, and the composer works for Disney Pixar. So it's the best it could be, qualitatively, and it sounds incredibly good. It matches as well, and it's so patriotic, and I'm glad to know that you like it. And I thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep running that intro. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, Terrence Custer said, try acupuncture if you haven't. No, sir. That is like the complete opposite of what I would call having a relaxing time. That is what I would call, I'd probably just have a heart attack at that point. But that's just not for me. That's not my thing. I've never understood the people that can actually withstand that, because I don't think I could. But our next one here, our live chat question is going to go to John Bernard. He said, do you know really why the Indians and Pakistanis hate each other so much? Can you tell some info about that?
So basically, it just comes down to the Indians control Kashmir, Pakistan doesn't. Kashmir is Muslim, Pakistan is. They want it. India claims it's theirs because it was theirs. Was when the British partitioned the country, and they want to keep it. That's really where all the hatred comes from. And then all the wars that have resulted from that ever since. Pretty much the same thing that happened with Israel in Palestine. Same exact thing. Really the same reasons for the hatred. So with that, hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to excuse me. This one goes to Dubstep Kid 801, who puts in the 5, and thank you very much, Dubstep Kid, for that support. They said, "I imagine this war would look like that Persian scene from the classic Where's Waldo book, the yellow one. Smooches from Mind Forces in the LSA."
Hey, thank you so much for the support. And where's Waldo? He's on vacation these days. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for the kind wishes and the best regards. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Nightmare Before Christmas, who puts in the 5. And they said, "I'm glad you're both feeling better. And honey with lemon always works for me. And can we get a question, please? LSA."
And we will get a question for you. And we will try out that honey and lemon. And also, man, I want to grab this one personally because it's a production side of things question. And I thought it'd be cool to talk about really quickly. Michael Ivy threw in a live chat and asked, "The Enforcer, when getting music for the intro, how did that work? Did you give them a list of songs, then they played it and recorded it just for you?" So how it worked was that I had to come up, wow, voice crack there. I had to come up with an idea of what I wanted to do. So the first thing that I did just to test out the waters was an Armed Forces medley because I thought it would be cool. So I figured out the Armed Forces medley, the kind of style I was looking for, all that sort of stuff, kind of the vibe that I was looking for. And then I went and found a composer, and I had to go through all kinds of different websites to go browsing for composers, but I found one. His name was Marcos Barilari, very good composer, great guy from Argentina, and he works for Disney Pixar. And I was like, he sounds like he's very well qualified, more than qualified for this. So I threw it over to him. And then we worked on it for a couple of months. Well, he really worked on it primarily, and then he would run it by me, and I'd give small revisions. But we did that, and then we went looking for an orchestra, and he suggested to me that we use an orchestra in Budapest called Budapest Scoring, because they're, one, cheap, and they're also incredibly high quality. So we were like, yep, that sounds good. We went and got that orchestra. We booked them in advance, and then I sat down with the composer and the orchestra for about an entire hour, and we belted out about 20-something takes on just the Armed Forces medley alone. Wash, rinse, and repeat this for literally every other song that was made. And we did like 20-something takes, each one on specific segments or the entire song in full. And then once all that was done, then we took all the recordings and we shipped them off by email to a guy in LA. Well, actually, it's not a guy in LA. It's a sound production studio in LA and Hollywood. And then they went and put all of the takes together and mixed them into a final version of the song. And then once that was done, it was then sent back to me and the composer for a final review and revisions, and then we would give another round of revisions, and then they would send the final product back, and then it was done. Then I went and got the copyrights on all of them, and then we started playing them on the show. So that's how every single song worked. So it was a pretty laborious process that usually each song would take approximately 5 months from like its original inception of the concept to completion to get done, and each song is fairly expensive as well. Just to give a little bit of an idea of how expensive it is to make that kind of music, 1 minute of music costs about $1,250. So it's a really kind of an expensive thing to do. And also, a lot of people have been saying this, and I have to say this is a very fair complaint. A lot of people hate that the Lee Spring Army's anthem, the White and Gold, in the intro no longer has lyrics or a chorus with it, or it's a choral, and I have to agree. The problem is that it's just insanely expensive to do that, because then I have to pay an entire choir to sing the lyrics to the Lee Spring Army anthem, and that could cost a lot of money. Once again, it's going to be about $1,250 a minute. So that means just doing the LSA anthem, that's about $2,000 to do the whole anthem and have a choir put on top of it. And that's also on the original cost already. So it's really cost prohibitive to add any kind of choirs to any of our music. So that's why they're not in it. That's why it's instrumentals only, because it's already incredibly expensive just to do an instrumental. And then it's twice as expensive to have an instrumental with a choir on top of it. But that's kind of like the whole process process behind the music and how it was selected. It was selected by me, and then we would go and compose it in Enforcer Marcos Disney kind of style, and then we would send it to the orchestra, and then they'd orchestrate it, and we tell them how to do it, and that whole process was done. So I hope that answers that question well, because that's a very cool technical question we don't really get to talk about a lot. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Marion Deemert once again, who puts in a 50 this time. And thank you very much, Marion, for that second support of the night. We do appreciate it. And Marion put this in and said, for your trip to Germany. And Marion was telling us in the live chat a minute ago that we should go to Germany and we should stream from Germany. And I said, unfortunately, the time won't permit it. But I've always been infatuated with Germany. In fact, I spent time in high school learning German in a very sort of limited way, not super in depth. And if you ask me to say something in German, I can only say something very simplistic, and that would be simply it, nothing crazy. Because I took German in a high school in Alabama where the German teacher was actually online. So I got on the computer and had conversations with them over Zoom and things like that on the computer. So that was the extent of my German learning. But I learned about the German culture, the language, and everything like that. I was always sort of infatuated with it, so I chose it. But I would really like to go to Germany one day. I've never been in person. I would like to go to Germany and also visit Austria as well, because Austria is like the really, really scenic part. And then Germany is the really cool part with the nice cities and things like that, like Hamburg, Munich, and places like that. So I would like to go see it. And sadly, I don't know if we can do it right now, but I would like to go see it at some point in the future. I'd like to see actually a lot of places in Europe, including places in France, Germany, and the like. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to thank you for the support, Marion Deemer, and hopefully one day we will be able to go to Germany. I would like to actually travel the world. We're just kind of scared that we're going to get offed if we start traveling the world too much, because we have practically pissed on every single dictatorship we could, and we're sure we're on all of their lists in one way or another. But I would like to go to Germany one day, and I would like to see Dusseldorf, because it has a cool little name. And also, I would like to see Frankfurt am Main, which is also really cool looking as well. I like this place, and it also has a very nice train station. Look at this Frankfurt am Main. Look at this. Wow, Hauptbahnhof. And it also has a train, you know. Look at this.
You know, the reason why I was always infatuated with Germany is because, like, for example, like the engineering that they're known for, pretty much everything that the modern day Germany is known for is kind of pragmatic. It's all very functional and it's all very precise. That's what I liked about it, and I was always like studying it for that reason. It was like I like the design behind the buildings and the stuff that they've done. I just like that kind of stuff. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you like the optimism, yeah. You like the bad Hamburg, yeah. You know, you like the towns, yes. Look at this.
And also, I like the straightforwardness of Germans. Like I really do. Like the Germans are just straightforward, like with what they say. There's no BS in it.
Man. You know, I wouldn't make it in a place like that. That's totally opposite of me. I say things that I don't mean sometimes. Like, yes, I would not like to eat another dish of food. Like, you know, so things like that. I say things all the time that I do not want to say, but I have to say it nevertheless. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, Marion Deemer, and maybe one day we shall. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next super chat is going to go to none other than, guess who, as Teshian, who puts in the 10. And thank you very much, as Teshian, for that $10 support. It's a Guslik like men in the Deutschen Welt.
Geschlick like men in the Deutschen Welt. But I do thank you so very much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, as Techian, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. I wouldn't be able to do that voice. And so with that, a huge thanks to you once again. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Clank Clank, I'm a Tank, who puts in the 5 and says China is building a dam in Tibet right now on the Indian border too, and just wait till that water war starts.
Oh, wait until it starts. It's gonna be bloodshed, I tell you. And oh, look, it's the Aksai Chin Lake, and they don't allow pictures because China doesn't like people going to Tibet.
No pictures!
No picture! Let's go take a look at this one. Oh, it's the flying god camera that China loves. I don't know why they do this so much. But look at this, man. It's a freaking blue lake filled with water and other things and mountains. Honestly, like just
probably the only clean water in the whole joint.
Man, probably so, man. Like honestly, you kidding? But they gassing, and it's a pretty nasty. Look at this, bro. This is like the beach.
What was that animal on the right?
Yo, what is that thing?
Man, what is that? Is that somebody dressed up in a costume?
I think that's a yak. I think that's like
Is
a
that, yeah, man. They got the yak.
bro. It
Man,
is
that's
a
got a
yak.
different meaning. If you're talking about like in China, they got the yak. Oh, they got that transportation. If you're talking about like in the hood, somebody's got the yak. It's like, oh no, they've got the yak. What did they bring that out for?
Bro, it's a real live yak. That's actually pretty cool, dude.
I've never actually really like seen a yak.
I've never even seen a yak either, dude. And then it hit
What
me.
man? Why they make that yak? You scroll back up for a second, man. What's up with that cartoon yak right there? That thing's kind of cute. That thing right there in the middle. Look at that cartoon yak.
Look at it, it's cute. But dude, you know what happens when the yak gets angry? It hits you with that yak attack.
What's going to do with the yak attack, Jack?
Man, that's like a rat attack. Something like that in Tarkov. But anyways, with that, I hope yak hunting. Screw the guy, man. Yaks are cool. Like honestly, bro. Like don't hunt a yak. Just like keep them around. They're cool. But anyways, with that, oh look at this one, bro. He's just chilling up in the mountains.
Right, yeah, it looks like kind of like cantankerous.
Bro, this yak's got like the spaghetti hair of like a Gen Z kid, like on God, bust it for real, for real. That mountain be like pointy on God, like that, bro. It's like about to do something like that. Man, yaks are cool though. Look at it, man. They're so fluffy.
Man, I like how fluffy they are. That's kind of good.
Man, that's kind of good. Bro, he slide for real. He slide. But anyways, with that, man, yaks are cool. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. Honestly, shocking to see a yak in the wild. And also, man, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at, man? What are you laughing at?
Oh, nothing, man. I was just thinking you slid.
Man, he slid for real, man. Oh God, bro. Look at this, bro. We looking at the commie camps tonight. Bro, is this like a legit commie camp though?
I don't think you're supposed to be seeing this as the forbidden pictures.
Bro, we just landed right on top of it. I'm like, on God, bro. On God. Bro, but I mean, yo. And this existed in China. Actually crazy right there. But anyways.
Looks like the mock loop.
Kind of does, actually. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Clink Clink. I'm a tank once again. He puts in the 5 and says Pakistan hid the Taliban for years and they hid bin Laden for years. They are our enemy. And you can look at what they're doing to London right now. Honestly, if that's true, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure if that is true, but if it is, you have a point. Now, I have no problem with India tending to that problem. If that problem does exist, then India has a right to deal with it. But they don't have a right, though, to like starve the civilians of water. They don't have a right to do that. And that's going way overboard. And also, it's just uncalled for. But Enforcer, what say you?
Also, speaking about what Pakistani citizens, well, not Pakistani citizens, speaking of what Pakistani people are doing in London, like that's an official extension of the nation of Pakistan's a little silly. Because, that's like saying you go to a country and, you like get drunk and punch a cop in Japan. So now Japan has rights to come to America and start killing everyone in America for what you did. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if what you're saying about Pakistan harboring and supporting terrorists is true, then if India deals with that, I don't have a complaint. But, talking about what, just some random Pakistani person is doing in London and then saying that reflects on their whole country, I mean, that's kind of a bit of a stretch right there. And also, it's not like Pakistan invaded Britain or anything. I mean, these people got into Britain through fairly legitimate and legal means. So, if the British don't like what they're doing, that's kind of on Britain. It's not really, something where it's like, oh, let's go kill all Pakistanis. It's kind of a little bit crazy. Like, to say that's the justification for cutting off the water to 200 million people and watching them die. Like that's a little bit of a tough one for me to justify there. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kyle Padell, who puts in a 5 and said, from a fan of Bollywood movies, India has no physics. Slava LSA from Oklahoma and agree on not cutting water from Pakistan.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And I would have to say, yeah, the Bollywood movies are crazy. And also, don't really agree with the whole cutting off the water and having everyone die of thirst kind of a thing either. It's a little bit barbaric for me. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for the support. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Pete Ski, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Pete Ski, for that $5 support and supporting the channel and helping to keep it running as well. And he said, why do you think mainstream media isn't covering the Chinese-Vietnam scenario? And wanted to thank you for your ethical, moral, and your high standards.
Hey, thank you. Ethical, moral, and legal, Matthew. That's what we're talking about here. Ethical, moral, and legal.
Yes.
Matthew gets that reference. Beyond that, I thank you so much for the support. And I think the reason why they're not talking about it is because the mainstream news is too busy trying to focus on the ratings, talking about political garbage, and that's really the whole reason why. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, the Ellison Bosun, by the way, is in the chat. It's Walter A. Lakota. He just told me that he is in the South China Sea heading to Taiwan for bunkers. Walter, you're in a very dangerous place in the world right now. You're going right through the middle of the South China Sea. China is literally roaming through there, as I'm sure you're aware, seizing Vietnamese islands as of today. So, yeah, they're causing trouble. They're wilding out in the South China Sea. So, interesting place to be going through. And also, you're going to Taiwan, which is another interesting place. So, tell me how that goes. I'll be curious to hear it.
And I gotta say, Walter Lakota, be safe out there. Be safe in those rough seas. And they're not rough from the weather. They're just rough from the diplomacy going on out there, or the lack of it. But still, very interesting here. And it's good to have you here with us tonight while you're in the middle of the South China Sea heading to Taiwan for bunkers. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jack Ragnarsson, who puts in a 5 and says, have you ever seen the movie Threads? And that movie is so damn horrifying. And also, can we get the marmot roasting hot dog man?
And you know what? I did see the movie Threads before, and it is terrifying. Actually, Matthew, that's a horror movie I'd recommend to you because it's largely based in real life, or at least a hypothetical scenario that could happen in real life. So I'd recommend it to you, Matthew. But we do have to get the marmot. Oh, hello there. Hey!
Oh, hello there, Governor. How you doing, Governor? We're sitting over here watching the Hot Dog Man's channel. He said, oh, man, I quit. I can't take this anymore. And then he gets like 30,000 views, and he said, I'm so back. He quit and he lived in a day. He's a flip-flopper, Governor. He's a fair weather soldier. He's a nobody, really. But tell us more, Fly.
Oh man, I call everyone else a grifter, but in reality, if I even get a glint of clout from any topic, I will die to continue to milk it to death. Aw, man, another $30 coming my way. I've got a brand new crowd. I'm going to market them on this. I need some balls and a backbone and a trip to prison. Like
Have you ever considered consistency, Governor? Have you ever heard of consistency? And we're not talking about the consistency of crack. We're talking about the consistency of work ethics.
Silence. A schizophrenic is talking. Listen and learn. No, I cannot be on a consistent schedule because work makes me allergic. Aw, man.
You know what's funny is I have a cousin that talks just like that too. It's crazy, just like that. I say it must run in the families.
We found that out today. we found that
Lord.
out today. Oh goodness, we were best not even to talk about that much. But nevertheless, I hope you all enjoyed the Marmot and the Fly segment. What a segment it is indeed. And I got to thank you so much for the support and asking us to do this segment. We haven't done it in a while. And I saw someone asking for it earlier in the stream. I think it may have actually been you. And I said, maybe we'll do it tonight. And we did. And hopefully y'all had a good laugh out of it. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Blue Boy 1968 Chappelle, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much for that support. They said the best horror that I've seen, Australian movie Wolf Creek. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
You know, I'll take a look into that, and hopefully it's good, and hopefully I'll be able to watch it. Hopefully I'll be able to find it. But still, a huge thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And holy moly, we just got a super chat from the Ellison Bosun. It is Walter Ellicott Jr., like we just mentioned a moment ago, treading through the dangerous waters of the South China Sea. And he puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Walter, for deciding to support the channel as well. We appreciate that. He said, aloha, Enforcer Man in LSA from LG Ellison Bosun in the South China Sea, headings on to Kaohsiung for bunkers. It's a life of a merchant seaman. And things are getting very interesting and real. And take one from the chat.
Man, it's so real. And I got to thank you for the support, Walter Lakota, and great to hear from you. It's good to have you here tonight, and I hope things are going quite well for you as you head to Kaohsiung, a major port on Taiwan's southwestern coast. You can actually see all the ships moored right here. You'll be there soon, Walter Lakota, and I wish you the best on your journey. But nevertheless, I gotta say, things are getting real down there at this point. The tensions are rising in every way with everyone around China. China right now, and eventually it's going to have to come to a head. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much for the support and being here with us tonight and helping this channel to keep on running, and we will make sure to get a live chat in your on there. And so what do we got, Matthew?
So the live chat question goes to Paul Anderson, who says, what does this potentially do to Russia's ability to buy missiles and drones from Iran after the major port explosion?
It doesn't really do much because that missile kind of import-export is actually happening in the Caspian Sea or by land through Azerbaijan. So it really won't affect much of anything in that regard while I'm struggling to not choke. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Walter A. Lakota, and sponsoring a live chat. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Dubstep Kid 801, who puts in a 4 and says, it probably was one single snap firework, LOL.
Well, in Iran, if you're talking about fireworks, you mean short-range ballistic missiles, then yes. And so with that, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Marc-Andre Burnett for putting in a 2, along with Plazoth for also putting in a $2 donation. And we appreciate you both, Mark and Plazoth, very much. And thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running, like always. And we also have a 2 from LSA Sergeant Figment, also known as Sarge. And he says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And hit that like button. That is an order, folks. You heard it from the LSA Sergeant Figment. Hit that like button. We've gotten up to 3,000 likes so far. I think we can get even higher than that. Come on, everyone. Hit that like button. Hit it. Hit it. But still, thank you so much for the support. And help this channel to keep it running. Because it is folks like you help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Dean Hugh, who says, I applaud the enforcer's ethics and reasonableness.
Hey, and I thank you so much for applauding my ethics and reasonableness and my adherence to enforcer ideology. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And that is actually our last super chat. So once again, thank you all for supporting the channel tonight with those super chats, and we appreciate that very much. And also, if I happen to miss any of them tonight, which I don't think I have, but if I have missed one, please yell at me in the live chat so I can go back and try to find it, because earlier, I'll admit, my brain was lagging and I might have missed one. So let me know if I missed yours. But anyways, jumping into our live chat questions and our Morse code decoders, we have those Morse code decoders right now. It's Chloe Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, David Millsaps, Royal Fluffiness, Airbell Garbo, Johnny Dog, and Norm Pritchett. They said the Morse code says, Tehran is having a little taste of what's coming, and India is wild and out, LLT LSA.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all got the dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct once again, as a matter of fact, on the 1,158th day of war, because you'll continue to get that correct time and time again. It's truly an amazing thing with that. And so with that, it's time for us to get some live chats. But due to time constraints and the stream going overtime at this point, we will be getting 3 live chat questions and then rounding out the stream. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Dalton LMAO, who says, is the situation in Iran a nuclear situation, based on what you know and things?
It doesn't appear to be nuclear, but there may be a nuclear element involved as a secondary damaged asset or artifact. So we're not entirely sure yet, but it doesn't appear to be nuclear in its initial explosive form that we were talking about earlier today. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Barry Woodward, who said, do we know if the Iranian nuclear sites are connected with underground tunnels?
Some of them are believed to be, so that's the best I can say. We don't really know a lot about the exact details of these facilities in the public. I'm sure that the U.S. Department of Defense, the CIA, and others have a great deal of information on them, but sadly in the public, we're not entirely sure. Some of them, if they're in close proximity, probably are, but there most likely is not a giant tunnel network underground throughout the entirety of the country, spanning hundreds of miles, that's connecting them. So in limited local areas, the answer may be yes, but for the large part, there is no international tunnel network, cross-country tunnel network in Iran for that sort of a situation. Most likely would not exist. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Avari Mandabratis, who says, which side of the India-Pakistani war will the United States choose to back, and which side should they back?
It's actually a tough one. It appears right now the president is going with a position that we should not support either side, and we should just try and see about lowering the tensions and just, largely try and see that this is avoided. But if we have to back aside, I believe at this point we're most likely going to be backing India due to economic and strategic concerns, because Pakistan's economic and strategic significance to the United States has begun to wane, and India's has started to become far more important in thwarting greater Chinese strategic ambitions in the general area. So I have a feeling that if we have to pick, we'll pick India, but the realistic situation is that we're most likely going to try and stay middle of the road on this one. And so with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching. The stream has been 3 hours, 50 minutes, and 30 seconds long, with about 10,000 people, actually, correction here, 10.4 thousand people here at the peak, and 74,000 people have watched the stream since it started. I got to thank all of y'all so much once again for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality, and we wouldn't have been able to keep this thing running for 1,158 days. We hope that y'all will join us all here tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for the Sunday night fundraiser as we cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world, and I'm sure that it's going to be even more interesting or more exciting than it was even today, which already is a pretty high note to end off on. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukrainian, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight with all 74,000 people here on the stream. We do appreciate all that very much. And also for all the folks smacking that like button as well, we do appreciate it. So we will see you all tomorrow for the Sunday night fundraiser stream at 10 p.m. Eastern. And also, if there is enough news to cover tomorrow, which there might be, considering how much crazy stuff's going on these days, we will have a short war video out tomorrow, midday, that the Enforcer will be making, because I believe it is his day. So with that, folks, thank you all for watching, and Slava Ukraine, Hero Slava, get some rest, and good night.